Good evening, everybody. On a cold Monday evening, we are starting our meeting now. Today is Monday, November 10th, 2025. And here in the Nat U Hill Room, we have council members present, David Henry, Deckard, Wiltz, and Feidel. And I do believe that we're supposed to have Councilmember Marty Hawk joining us virtually.
She said she would be running a little bit
Okay.
late.
Okay. So we'll
keep
see
an
her.
eye out.
And then I know Councilmember Peter Iverson will be absent. So we will go ahead and jump into our business of today. We are having it today because tomorrow is Veterans Day. And so in honor of the holiday, the county buildings will be closed, so we are just doing our business a day early. Next up, we will go ahead and get into our Pledge of Allegiance. So all of us that are able to stand, please stand for the Pledge of the Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much for that. Before we start going into our agenda, I did want to take a point of privilege to have a couple of remarks for a woman who is a trailblazer in our community, who recently passed away, who is all on our hearts for a lot of different reasons. And her name is Charlotte T. Zitlow. Charlotte T. Zitlow was a trailblazer and a fearful leader and fearless leader all the way up until the very end of her passing. And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't say a few words, and just wanted to say thank you to Charlotte for all the things that she's done for this community, for this county, for the city, and we owe it to her to continue the work in her honor. So with that being said, I just would like for us to, if you all can join me for a few moments of silence. All right, thank you. And may her memory and legacy live on. All right, next up we will get into tonight's adoption of the agenda. Are there any council members that would like to make changes to tonight's agenda? All right. Oh, do we have anybody? All right.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
Council, the Board of Commissioners have requested their item 7A ordinance 2025-39 terms and conditions for the sale of the Thompson site be pulled from tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay. Are there any other amendments to tonight's agenda? All right. And seeing none and not seeing Councilmember Hawk virtually as of yet, we can go ahead and do voice vote. So all those in favor of amending or adopting tonight's agenda as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right, next up we have public comment. And these are for items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if you are here present in the Nat U Hill Room and you would like to speak on items not on tonight's agenda, now's your time to do so. When it is your turn, you can come up to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill Room. You can, you'll have to write your name for the record, then you'll state your name for the record, and the timers are all around you, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. And then if you are virtually, same thing, except you'll just raise your hand virtually. We will call on you, you'll unmute, and you'll also have up to 3 minutes. So because we already have a taker here, again, you can state your name for the record, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm T. Randall. I'm here as a resident of the Seminary Square Apartments south of the Convention Center, which are owned by the county. In the spring, we were informed that there would be no more lease renewals at our complex. It seemed like the long-awaited demolition of our block had finally arrived. However, over the summer, the county appeared to reject the notion of an imminent demolition. Now in December, when every other renter in the city is signing leases for the next year, we're left in the dark as contractors assess the building, inspect the utilities, and schedule annual unit inspections. All of these point towards conditions changing in our building. I would like to ask that the residents be given transparency about the future of our homes so that we can make informed decisions about our housing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, if we have, I don't see any takers on Teams via or just yet, so we'll continue to keep going in the Nat Yeho room. Again, state your name for the record, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Lynn Coyne, a longtime resident taxpayer of Monroe County. And I would like to ask how it is reasonably possible that the commissioners could spend thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of dollars evaluating the North Park land transaction when the council was not going to approve it. Now, the commissioners, being reasonably intelligent, responsible people, would not do that, I assume, had they known. But then the council, also being reasonably intelligent, responsible people, would not have let them do that. So I'm quite confused in terms of how my county government functions. I mean, all but Ms. Hawk, you're all Democrats. Presumably you go to the same political functions, maybe even the same social functions, or you see each other here in the courthouse from time to time. How did we get to a position as a taxpayer that you are spending money on a project that was dead on arrival? And I'm sure other folks are just as confused as to how we got to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other takers here present in the Nat Hill room that would like to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? Going once, going twice. All right. And looks like we have Councilmember Hawk present with us virtually. Hello, Councilmember Hawk. All right, and because we don't have any takers here in the Nat Yeho room and virtually via Teams, we will go ahead and proceed with our agenda here. And so next up is item 5, which is department updates. This is a chance for county government to talk about their updates. So if it is, and it's for items not on tonight's agenda. So if you are a county government, a department head, or an elected official that would like to speak on something on tonight's agenda, or not speak on something on tonight's agenda, give us an update. Again, you can come up to the lectern here in the Nat Yeho room, and you'll have up to 10 minutes. And if you are virtual, you will be able to raise your hand via Teams. Hello. Sure. Yep. Oh, yeah. But we can maybe pass you. Okay. Either way, we'll still need to have mics for presentations. Yeah. You'll have up to 10 minutes.
Trying to figure out how to share.
Look at you. Thank you. You're so kind.
That's it.
All right. Thank you so much for hearing us tonight. We come before you tonight to make a request. So first, I'd like to describe our multi-year search for a new facility site from 2022 to 2025. The search for a new facility site began because the current jail was failing and it was unable to sustainably meet constitutional levels of care. Now, phase one took place in 2022, and it consisted of initial property reviews. The commissioners and council at that time reviewed 4 properties. The Fullerton Pike site was chosen, but it required rezone by the city, and the city unfortunately denied that. Phase two took place with further property investigations in 2023. At that time, an additional 4 properties were reviewed, including the city-owned Hopewell property and the Thompson property. Now, the city said no, as we know, to the use of Hopewell, and Thompson was given priority, but it presented 5 significant usability obstacles, and that's shown on the slide. Estimated costs are given where available on the slide as well. These included removing a 10-acre dirt mound at the cost of $5 to $6 million, purchasing an additional piece of property at the cost of $1 million, relocating Duke electric poles, which would cost $2 million and encounter a 2.5-year delay, and we would need city approval to build a road over a sink or quarry hole, as well as to complete a tree study, and the money for that would be unknown. Now, due to the time issue alone associated with Thompson, staff was directed to investigate North Park. And of course, this was appeared to be the last viable option and was eventually deemed the best location by both the council and commissioners. We signed a 2024 purchase agreement to purchase the North Park property in October, and the council approved that in Ordinance 2024-54, which fixed the terms and conditions for the purchase in November of 2024. A property on Vernal Pike subsequently became eligible in late 2024, but the only way to obtain sewer connection was to voluntarily annex that property and involuntarily annex all contiguous property at an estimated cost of $875,000. To date, we have spent over $4 million on design work for North Park and property reports and surveys for other locations. Now, in 2025, as we know, a couple of weeks ago, the appropriation was denied for the purchase of the North Park property, and there is currently no other property being considered or known as available.
So with all of this in mind, we wanted to talk through our next steps. The council's denial for the purchase, the appropriation has effectively returned the project to the beginning. And that is going to incur a minimum of 2 additional years for completion. And again, we've spent over $4 million to investigate properties. And there are other properties as well that we looked at, where the convention center is currently going. There's property on Rockport Road. There are a number of properties we walked, but without doing other work. We do not have an alternate site, as North Park was determined to be a best available site. The council had previously approved, as you know, a portion of the economic development income tax and a corrections facility income tax in order to pay for this project. And this project was moving along based on collaboration, based on working with the council and the board of judges and the sheriff and the clerk and the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. And all along the way, a lot of public input. Every site we looked at, we included public input. And that was the Broadview neighborhood, Thompson property, the Fullerton property, where there's only one resident in the area we met with. The Vernal Pike, we had 2 meetings. Ellisville, we had 2 meetings. And of course, we listened to residents, we addressed their concerns. It's unfortunate to hear a lot of misinformation circulating in the public, from the Chamber of Commerce, from city officials, regarding things like transit, where a plan exists, but we're not going to implement anything until the project's done. Treatment, which requires council funding and is an uncertain endeavor in the current political climate. In addition, the current jail facility cannot be remodeled. See the RGS and RQAW reports on the current building. The city wants us to work with them. Well, that sounds great, but where have they been for 5 years? They didn't support the Fullerton site. they establish unrealistic and unnecessary restrictions regarding Vernal Pike property,
And
and
I'm
they said
sorry.
no to Hopewell.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner
Okay.
Thomas, but on our agenda, we do have next steps listed, and understand, at least in my mind, first of all, thank you for taking up us on our offer on showing up and talking about this. I was thinking that your department or your update would, again, those are for items not on the agenda, and technically, because next steps, and this sounds like next steps are on the agenda, I personally would like to pause this and wait until we get to that particular part, because I think that was the idea. I know you had mentioned that you had a department update. I did not know what that department update was about. But because this is technically on the agenda, I'm going to ask if we can hold on to that until the end where we have this on the agenda.
Can we strike a compromise? I would like to talk a little bit about some things that were said at the last meeting. And I would like to go, because neither of us could be here later.
Oh, yeah. We didn't want to be
Physically
late.
present.
Yeah.
Here later. I'm going to try to join via Teams after my appointment. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it or not.
Okay.
Commissioner Madeira is going to do the same. So we're just trying to get this information across. It looked like a council item, so we just assumed that we could share this information at least to get you teed up for your discussion later.
Yeah, I get it. But my email to you all were to extend the idea for you all to come back and have the dialogue so that we could put that on the agenda, which is what we did here. So if you want to just kind of briefly maybe talk about some things that were highlighted, and then let's table that until we get to the actual next steps, because that's the meat and potatoes that I personally want to get into.
Thank you. Compromise achieved. Thank you so much.
Collaboration at
I
its
appreciate the opportunity to do this.
That's what
because
we
we
do.
cannot be here.
Sure.
So, as we saw at the meeting, what was difficult for us to work through was that we heard a number of different reasons from different council members for their no vote. And so some folks talked about the size of the facility. And again, as we mentioned, Vigo County just recently completed a jail, and they're already under a federal order to build another because their first one is too small. We are following consultants' recommendations and the Sheriff's Department recommendations. The location, obviously, there are a lot of places in this community that we've looked at. But one of the issues that continues to come up, well, it's a bifurcated issue. Is it a single floor jail? Does it have co-located facilities with it, with the other justice functions? How can we protect staff? And what the sheriff has told us over and over again, and what we've heard from consultants, is you have to do a single floor jail. And so that leaves a lot of properties out, especially if you're co-locating. And co-location is also a safety issue, as we know. You've gone ahead and you've completed those 2 taxes. We had the money, we're on the runway, we're on the path, and then the legislature. And most of you mentioned that, and I appreciate that. The legislature is in flux and just threw us a curveball. We get it. But one way around that is to say, hey, let's go ahead and ask our attorneys to do an extension on purchase agreement for North Park, and let's continue our vote on appropriation until we know what the legislature is going to do. So with that, we did come up with 5 questions. We're going to send you all an email with this on it, so you'll have it. Yes, Kim, I will send it to you too. We'll send it to all the council, to Kim, staff, everyone, so you'll all have it. This is what we're asking of you, and we are asking you all to answer these 5 questions, but you have to do, our only caveat is you have to work with the same departments we've been working with: the sheriff, board of judges, prosecutor, public defender, et cetera. We put a deadline on it because the week after this deadline is when we have to report to Ken Falk any progress we've made or not made. So it's a very simple request, and that's what we're doing. The ball is in your court, right? If you have every right to say no to the purchase agreement, the appropriation, but the ball is now in your court because we've spent years doing the work, collaborating with the community, collaborating with all of these departments to try to get everyone's needs met. And it has not been easy, and everybody's given up something, or a lot of things, in the process. And so that's why we're asking just these 5 questions to be addressed. They're very simple, straightforward, and we ask that you do that. Now, again, I will try to get back on later tonight, as will Commissioner Madeira, via Teams, and we can walk through any of this. I apologize for stepping on toes, did not mean to do that. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing from y'all.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Before you go, because I keep hearing the phrase, the ball is in our court. And, you know, again, as our sports analogy, I'm a girly girl, but I love sports. So I'm picking up the ball and I'm dribbling it. Since you threw it to us, now, you know, we're Team County Council, and we're now trying to pump fat, or pump, you know, do all those sports analogy things that they do. So I guess, how is the ball in our court in collaboration when you just told us that we have to work within the deadline that you're giving us, and we must work collaboratively with the sheriff, board of judges, prosecutor, public defender, clerk, probation, with these things? I guess I hear you when you say the things related to our city colleagues, and some of those I definitely agree with. I think I'm a little frustrated and tired of sometimes elected officials talking, and we need to do. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we can walk it like we talk it. At least that's the motto I try to live by. But that being said, I do believe that because they also threw some stuff at us in the city, that this is an opportunity time for us to have collaboration with them. They spoke up and they said some things. Now it's time for them to be called to the carpet as well. Mm-hmm. So because the ball is now in our court, as you have mentioned, but then you give us these things to work with, how do you think that we can make a compromise, much kind of like how we did with this conversation? How can we compromise in that?
I bring the city, if you want to have the city there, invite them. But there's a minimum base of who has to be there, and it has to include the sheriff and the board of judges and others. Of course. So that's whoever else you want to invite. You can invite the chamber, you can invite IU, you can invite whoever we don't care, but we just have that minimum requirement of please. Because here's the thing, we feel like we've been set back to step 1. Mm-hmm. And we can go through and rehash 2-3 years of steps, but that's not going to change anything. That's not going to achieve anything, and we need direction. And so again, well within your purview as council members to deal with the budget and to vote no, but now we're saying, here's what we need back from you so we know what to do next. And then we move on to the next steps together. But for right now, just rehashing everything like we've just done in 2 minutes is not going to change your vote. It's not going to change how you view things, but we need to know where you all stand, because we heard a lot of different reasons for the no vote. And so this is our way of saying, look, we just need the temperature read in the room, and we need that clarity. And then we'll together figure out what to do next. Mm-hmm. But we're kind of stuck because we've done the work. You've been there as a council, not you personally, all of you, but you've been there as a council all throughout this process, and we've moved forward. And now going back to step 1 doesn't seem to make sense, because we would end up, I think, in the same place. But we also feel like there is some, there's a lack of consensus among council members about what you do or don't want. And that's what we're looking for first, your clarity on what you do or don't want. And if you want to invite whoever to your table to have that discussion about that will bring you that clarity, great. Whatever you need, whatever you want. But we had to set a deadline because we do have a January 15th check-in that we have to make on our agreed order.
Sure. And
So we're not trying to be obnoxious about it, but we're letting you know that that's, yeah.
And so wouldn't the January 8th, that's your meeting?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be something that I would think, and I'll look at council members as well to kind of see what their thoughts are. Wouldn't that be something where I would think that we would have a joint meeting where all of us could sit down and have that type of conversation?
Sure. If you want to do it
yeah.
before the 8th, great, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yes. So,
I know time is of the essence, but
yeah.
I,
So
you
we
know,
just put that as sort of like, that's really our baseline last date, that we can,
And I
So-
think if you wanted to change the forum too,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would be
that's
totally
fine.
fine as well. Yeah.
Totally cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just have a question. Hopefully get back on the meeting at the end here and we talk about it. Why is that a deadline?
Because of Ken Falk's settlement agreement runs January 15th, so that would allow us to come to a consensus.
Or not? I mean, I'm just trying to, there are many places that could go, right? One could be revisiting the extension of that, given that the county has been compliant with the order for so long. And that's due to the good work of the court system. So I hear that there's a sort of deadline, but I'm not sure I'd like to get to a place where we agree on, I think, facts before we get to deadlines and timelines. I mean, I have a lot of disagreement with what I've heard. I think there's some premises that we need to really talk about, that whether we agree that on the same words here. But I'm not sure I even agree that there's a deadline. If anything, it's sitting out the ACLU and discussing potentially the extension of the agreement, because we've done a great job living within the agreement. So
Well, we're definitely going to do that.
If we can get to first principles on that, that might be a reasonable thing to talk about at that meeting. But I know you don't want to go here right now, but I just think like that alone is enough to give me pause about whether or not that's a deadline or not. Thanks.
We have to provide an annual update.
Yeah, and that should be done jointly,
and
because we're not even on the same page on progress.
That's
So-
right, and that's
'cause I
why
think there
we've
is
asked for
progress.
this
Yeah.
basic information, and it's really not, there are no difficult questions here, but there is, I think, a lack of consensus among council members, and it would be nice to have that consensus
I would
so
like
that
to,
we can move
Madam,
on.
with all due respect, we have had consensus on that vote. And so I think we need to be very clear about even the concept of consensus. Of course, when a project changes and implodes on itself, there's an opportunity to start talking about all the things that should be brought back to the table. That's what the public gave us. So I'm not concerned at all that we're back to a kind of creative destruction to figure out what we do here. I'm not even concerned that's an issue, but I would just be, we did have a consensus point. I think it's been repeated enough in the media that it has to be corrected. 7-0 unanimous is consensus, period, on that particular piece.
But a variety of reasons were offered by different council members for why they voted
707.
that way, and so
Sorry, Madam President.
how we respond to that, we can't respond to, we don't know what to respond to.
So in the interest of time, I'm going
Thank
to
you.
look to other council members to see if they have anything. We'll wrap up because, again, did not think that this was going to come up for this. Again, I'm a little thrown off by this. I know you had a department update, but I didn't know that it was like this. So we'll finish here, and then I want to pick up because hopefully you two will be able to come back and have this conversation with us. Yes, Councilor Henry, or Deckard. Yes.
The Pennsylvania,
We're all.
the Indiana.
It may, my mic's not working. I don't know.
Yeah, it's working, you're on.
There we go. All right. This may be something you cannot answer, but I'd heard this somewhere, and I don't know where it was. There's been a lot of information out there that Mr. Falk was planning an upcoming visit to the jail. And you don't have to necessarily respond on this now, but I'd like to know how that goes. I'd like to also know what Mr. Falk's observations are around that once that's scheduled. And I assume that's a party with the sheriff, et cetera.
I can provide an update on that. We scheduled a tour of the current facility with Mr. Falk for November 25th at 2 p.m. and I sent an email to all council members because Mr. Falk had indicated that if council members wanted to attend that tour, they could with him at that time.
I appreciate that. I will check to see if I can tour it because I would love to do that. I think that is a form of an annual report in many different respects, and I think that is a critical piece with all of this.
Thank you.
Council members, Vital or Wiltz, did y'all have anything?
I don't have any more at this time.
Okay. Councilor Hawk, what about you?
Yes. Okay, just trying to make sure I'm unmuted here.
We can hear
I
you.
would like, I would like to throw back a requirement to them because I think there seems to be a total misunderstanding of the county commissioners and perhaps others who seem to have no idea about what that's going to do to county operations overall for us to try to float this price tag because of the changes in the state legislation. And I am certainly not suggesting we go to the state and ask them to double up what would be allowed to do, because even that, it reduces the amount of money that we have to support all of county government. So it's a big picture, and I know that it's difficult when you really want something to only look at that thing that you want. But we as a county council have to think about all of county operations. And so before they meet with us again, I hope they'll take a look at what the results of those dollars would be. Now, I know that's not their job. It's our job to understand the fiscal issues. But I just would like to know that they at least understand what they're asking for.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councilor Hawk. All right. Well,
Thank you all for your
yes.
indulgence.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sorry
Thank
we
you.
can't be here later.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting Councilor Henry earlier either, too.
It's okay. Hopefully you all will come back.
Yes, we will see you later.
For that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. That was interesting. All right. So next up, we will have item number 6, which are the consent agenda items.
Council, I move to approve the following consent agenda items for November 10th. The Aviation Department's request for a category transfer within Fund 1107-0000 Aviation of $62,766.82 from the supplies category and $92,863.39 from the services category for a total appropriation of $155,630.21 into the capital category. The Auditor's Office requests for a category transfer within Fund 1000-0002 County General Auditor of $18,000 from the personnel category to the services category. And finally, the County Council meeting summary minutes for August 29, 2025 as presented.
Second.
All right. All right. It wasn't working there. We got a motion and a second. All right. I feel like I got to hold this up because it's really not loud. Are there any questions or comments from council related to this item? All right. Now we'll go to public comment. If you would like to make comment on our consent agenda items, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, we usually do consent agenda by voice vote, but because we have a council member that is attending virtually, everything tonight will have to be a roll call vote. So may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you. We tabled item number 7, so we will, which is item 7 starts our ongoing business, and so now we titled 7A, excuse me. So now we'll go into 7B.
Council, I move to approve the amended exhibit for Resolution 2025-45A, committee recommendation for the Sophia Travis Community Services Grant.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Ms. Turner King.
So I'm displaying a draft of amended resolution 2025-45A. The only thing that this amendment is going to change is the exhibit, which is, I'm scrolling down, and it's to change the purpose for the New Hope for Families project. It was previously listed as making homelessness brief for children. However, during a Sophia Travis meeting, this organization had requested to amend their project purpose, and the amended project purpose wasn't reflected in the spreadsheet. So now they're requesting to make their project preserving food access for low-income early learners.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Council, is there any questions? Looking over here to my immediate right. Seeing none. Looking to my left. Seeing none. And looking online at Councilor Hawk. And
No question.
All right, everybody shaking heads. All right, cool. All right, so next up we'll go to public comment. If there's public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. You'll have up to 3 minutes. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Feidel? Yes. Counselor Wiltz?
Yes?
Counselor Henry? Yes. Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you. Next up is item C.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval of an amendment to Resolution 2025-42 hiring freeze for full and part-time positions.
Second.
All right, and I'm going to go back.
At the last council meeting, there was a discussion of the hiring freeze and developing a process, potentially developing a form for departments to fill out and a way for that form to be evaluated to evaluate requests for positions to be filled as an exemption to the hiring freeze. So after the council meeting, PAC was able to meet, and I don't know if Councilor Wiltz or Councilor Feidel would like to give an update as to what happened at the PAC meeting, or if you'd like me to continue talking.
I'm happy to, thank you, yes. So there were a lot of people at the PAC meeting, and it was an interesting discussion. We did not come to, we didn't vote to offer anything over to council for approval. So we don't have an official amendment to the resolution to present to you all, but what we did talk about is the various ways in which the hiring freeze is untenable for a lot of folks. And everyone seemed to have a situation that was special. And I think Councilor Hawk actually kind of alluded to the fact that this was going to happen if we do a hiring freeze and we have a process where they're going to come to us, they're all going to come to us. So we did talk about the need to fully exempt the items on Councilor Feidel's list that she just showed me. So grant-funded positions would need to be exempted. Public safety positions, so the jail positions, specifically the corrections officers and the merit deputies, of course. And I think we talked about that last time. And then the 24/7 operations positions that are required to kind of be on duty 24/7. So that kind of reflects the youth services. And what was the last one? Oh, if the position is mandated statutorily, that would be obviously an exemption as well. If the work that position is doing is mandated statutorily, that's a little bit different situation. So given all of those exemptions, in addition to that, one thing we talked about is instead of making this a flat out bam freeze, given that we do not have at this point a specific fiscal goal, besides, hey, we need to save money, we don't have any way of getting to that specific fiscal goal in terms of a number right now. We just do not have that information. And therefore, we don't have a way of saying how long we need to have a hiring freeze. We don't have a way of saying to what point. Is there a dollar amount? So all of this is leaving the members of county government who come to work every day feeling pretty uneasy, and I don't blame them. In order to maybe alleviate some of that, one of the suggestions that was made during the meeting was to make the hiring freeze more of a 90-day pause on hiring, so that when a position comes open and the process is started to fill that position, there's a required 90-day pause before that position can be can proceed to advertising. And is that right? Did we say before it could even proceed to advertising? But they could be getting their ducks in a row. And within that 30 days, we would have time to get a fiscal impact, so we get an idea of what the fiscal impact of that position being open for 90 days is. We'd also ask them, ask for information on a form. So we had a draft form that Employee Services had started for us for this process, and I think we looked at a draft maybe last time, or talked about it at least in our last meeting. That might not be the exact form. We still don't know. That's kind of the next discussion, but we would be able to get some information in that 90-day period. The freeze after the 90 days, if council doesn't act, then they get to go ahead and proceed with the hiring. We will monetize that savings for the 90 days. Obviously, that's not nearly the same kind of impact as freezing until we don't know, but at the same time, it allows our staff in county government to proceed with some vision of what's going to happen in the future, and a little bit of faith in kind of their next steps. I think there are other things that we need to be considering as we put this into place, but right now we have many positions in line waiting to hear, and each one has varying levels of compelling arguments for why they should have that position. This allows us to kind of compromise on savings for 90 days. We could, right now we've already passed a resolution saying that there can be no transfers into or out of the overtime lines. We could say, stop moving anything in the tens if we want to make sure. That's a level of maybe micro scrutiny that we might not be comfortable with, but if you wanted to ensure that savings was realized and not utilized for something else, you could do that. that's all that I had. And did I capture everything, Counselor Fidel?
Yes, I think so, but I think I'd also like to throw in maybe thinking about requiring that the liaison or liaisons for the departments that are on this 90-day chill or whatever we're going to call it, or it doesn't have to be 90 days. I think it could be 30 or 60 or 90, whatever the council would think would be suitable, that the liaisons would be required, I think, to meet with the departments to make sure they understand what the issues are so they can report back to the council in full to understand it better and hopefully open up more dialogue that way as well.
Okay. First, I saw Marty's hand up, so I'll go to her and then I'll kick it back to us here and then at you, Hillary.
Right, and I'll try to say this quickly. I know that during the budget process, we were concerned about the grant positions that were no longer be covered under the grants that was being moved over to general, and not all of those were paying for the insurance, which really sent our insurance costs higher. So I think we have to be very cautious when we're looking at grants to say, are they going to be moving positions back into the grant out of general from where they've been moved, or just in just some thoughts, because we see that if you have them in grants, and then there's a thought that it can always, general can pick up everything else. We found this year that was not, that was very problematic.
Counselor, I think I saw Decker's hand first, and then I'll go to Counselor Henry.
Thank you. Thanks for all this, and I appreciate two big things right off the bat. I want to say it. Number one, I appreciate any department heads wrangling through this. One of the things that does keep me up at night is anything that happens up here that causes consternation on what I call the counter positions, meaning the positions who are literally doing public service across the counter. I don't want anything here more than is absolutely necessary to create issues for it, because I think in years past we've had issues around that. That said, I also appreciate the wrangling that PAC was doing, trying to figure out a reasonable approach on this. And it sounds like, other than a delay and some concerns, there's some kind of goose eggs on figuring it out. One thing that I would be curious on, and this does not have to be answered today, when do we have amounts that tell us what you're working with? When do you know that? You know, I pay property taxes, and I pay them honestly and diligently. Let me say that for the record. I pay those property taxes on 2 different properties, and I marched in here last Thursday to pay my property taxes with the notion of, I've got to do that because I've got to, you know, I got to make sure I've done my part so these things get done. And I know that we get funding from all different sources, and the state is very particular about how you get a budget, what you do and what you don't do. And if you don't do it by the right deadline, you don't get to do anything. Or you do it wrong by this, you don't get to correct it. They can do otherwise, but we cannot. And I guess the question I would throw out is, when do you have a reasonable idea? And here's why I say that. I am very worried that we're just like the end of that last budget, where we started into that path of keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting, and then we end up doing this anti-government horse you know what that we hear out on the street when there's actual service that needs to be done. And so I get nervous about just keep cutting, keep cutting, keep holding, keep cutting, keep cutting, keep holding, keep cutting. And I think that looks good on paper, theoretically, but when services get cut, it becomes an issue. Our federal government just nearly put us all through a case study of hell on that, where when people don't get things, things start happening, and it's not real pleasant when people don't get things. So I would like us to have honest, accurate numbers as close as possible. I know that magically can't happen tonight, but I really, there's no need to put people through wrangling and pressure or cut services and stress if it's not the case or if it is. Because what we will do is we'll keep just eating each other, and there's not going to be anything left here to do it. We'll have department heads quitting, we'll have staff not getting hired, services not rendered, people being crappy at county. We go down all these chains, and I'm really worried about that.
Councilor Henry.
Thank you. Thanks for all the comments there. I appreciate the 90-day concept, especially because we do need the data to understand what we're saving in that position for a quarter and what that savings does do to the general fund. I think that's important. I agree with Councilor Hawk in that for the grant-funded positions that do incur county cost, we need to understand that because it can't just be a blanket approval of a grant position if we are incurring the healthcare costs and wraparounds. Like, that's just math. I think a lot of this still, is cold, but it is the math that keeps me up with all this. So I would like to see if we could possibly use that 90-day period as well to really reflect on what happens when we won't have the resource. I just keep thinking about the presentation by FSG at a long-term government finance meeting over the summer that shows by fiscal 28 and 29 negative numbers in our account lines, right? Because at some point, while all the services are being rendered fiscal year to fiscal year, there's this other timeline out there of winnowing revenue in the county. And that revenue has to come from somewhere, and that it could be increasing in taxes in our community, which no one wants to mention. So it's preparing, it's getting, I think, people ready for a 3 to 5 year mindset rather than dealing with the fire in their office, which is somebody quit today and we got to get that position filled. I do hope department heads can use that 90-day period to reflect on, well, what does 3 years out look like? Because we may be at a point 3 years out with diminishing revenue that position might not be being filled, which means those FTE hours are going to have to spill over onto other people's laps. The message from Indy is clear. It's do more with less. So we might be buying time with this for a year, but boy, I think 2 years from now, with fiscal 29, the revenue is going to look very different, and we got to start getting in that headspace. I know that probably hurts people here in the county, but look, we balanced the budget on the back of the edit, which of course has triggered the commissioners to be here to ask for all sorts of things related to the jail. We're not going to be able to tap that too many more times. It won't even be available to us as a tax feature, as an option 3 years from now. So it's just the math of it. That's it. That's what I have right now. It's just the math.
I guess I got a clarifying question related to the pause, and I think Councilman Wiltz had said something. Within the 90-day pause on hiring the position, you said something about if the council, to get a fiscal impact during this time frame, if the council doesn't act, then we will go ahead with the hiring. Can you clarify that for me, please?
I think, I'm not sure if I can clarify it, but I can respond.
Okay.
My understanding is that what we would be doing is implementing this default of you submit the email request to the council office, hey, I have a position open, I'd like to hire. That starts a 90-day, you can't do it for 90 days. Mm-hmm. And during that 90 days, here are a couple of things we need from you, namely just some questions answered. During that time, I think that we would have the opportunity to say, hey, just like we've had the opportunity all along to say, hey, when they submit that, we have 48 hours right now. This gives us 3 months to really, think that through okay, do we need to have them come to council? How much more information do we need? Let's talk this over. So we could invite them to come to council if that's necessary, find out what we need to find out. And if we don't take an action preventing them from hiring, then after 90 days, they would be able to hire.
Okay. That's the part that I needed to clarify.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess, and listening to what Councilor Henry was saying, I guess this is food for thought because as I'm thinking about this and I think about all the grilling hours that we went into trying to kind of reduce a lot of things, if we do this, then what was the original intention of us originally doing the hiring freeze from the beginning? Like, because I think that is in my mind. I know right now, I just am concerned because, I know we might not have a necessarily a dollar amount. This is X amount of dollars or the amount that we want to save by not going forward with hiring with these positions. But I think that I'm not necessarily working on a specific dollar amount. And I'm just kind of looking at overall general picture because this budget season has definitely taught us, buckle up, Buttercup, the sequel is happening next year, whether we like it or not. And I want to be able to, I'm not certain about this because it's almost like if that's the case, then do we even do a hiring freeze to begin with? And my idea is, I understand people might not like it, and I get it, I understand, but we are under different times right now. And much like what we've been saying before is to continue to come back, obviously adding the exemptions of the grant fund and public safety, which we did a couple of weeks ago, the 24/7 operations. I know we've had the clerk staff, come in and speak to them about Me Too. So maybe that's also something to think about. And of course the mandated statutory positions, but I just wonder, if the work that we did to get us to the hiring freeze resolution with this is in vain by this concept.
So I don't think it's in vain. I do think that it might have been premature, and this came from E. Sensenstein in the meeting. E said, well, best practice in HR, and all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, maybe we should find out what that is. And it was, and correct me if I get this, oh, she's got everything written down.
Not color coded.
I need colors though, right? But before the hiring freeze is kind of the third thing you would consider. And first, you would do changes to the amount of hours worked is in there somewhere. But what's the first thing?
40 to 35.
That kind of thing. Changing either from 40 to 37 or reducing overtime. The things that we were, talking about but haven't done. And then, and slowing down, I think, is kind of the first step in that process. Sorry, I don't remember everything that we did because I obviously slept since then and lost some of it out the back of my head. But the hiring freeze is sort of the most drastic, and I think that E's point was there are a few other things that can be put in place and even long-term put in place.
I have that email if you want to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's terrific.
You got it. Okay.
Okay, so E, if you want to go ahead and unmute, can you help us out with this conversation?
Sure, and I'm going to apologize because I am driving, so I don't know what
I'm so sorry.
that will look like. No, it's fine. So we had that conversation, and there are a lot of options that you can consider. I think what makes us different than some best practices is that we are government and that we are county government, which there's a lot of layers to that, right? You have different offices and their statutory responsibilities and elected officials and all of those things. So yeah, there are a lot of options, and it really just depends on how you want to carry this out. I think what you've all said tonight about gap between what identified as your needs for fiscal responsibility and the department's needs to carry out their job functions, right? And I think what is not happening there is consensus about what the goals are. And I think that you haven't figured out what is the goal, what are you trying to achieve, to what degree. Like, is that a complete hiring freeze? Is that a pause? Where does that get you financially? And the departments are not buying into that because they don't necessarily understand. And I think that's what you need to, that's where you need to get to a point where they understand and they can buy into maybe sitting there for 90 days, 6 months with a position open because that meets this goal that they are contributing towards. Does that make sense? And figuring out what that option is in the large scheme of all the options you could possibly consider.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Yes,
I
Councilor
think
Bynum.
one thing also we talked about in the meeting with PAC was figuring out what the council priorities are, right? So is there any sort of prioritization, I don't know, via department, via the service, via whatever the criteria would be in what it is we'd like to see funded, right? So that, I think, could be something that we could come up with to aid in figuring some of these issues out, right? I mean, I think, you know, it's like core work. What's the core work that really needs to get done here, right? I mean, I know all departments, I'm sure, and all employees should and want to feel valued and all that, but the reality is you have to look at the money situation. You know, I'm usually on the other side of this with the employees, right? So I get it. But now I'm on this side with the money, and so you have to look at the money, and if you don't know the money situation, what are your priorities? And you figure that out and then base your decisions on what you're going to do on the priorities, right? At least that's what I think we talked about, was the priorities.
Yes, that's a really good point. We did talk about that and the need to think about our priorities, then use those to set goals. And that made me think about when we talked first about setting up the long-term finance committee, that was actually what we were talking about, is having a subset of council able to meet regularly to think beyond the annual budgeting process and think about where is it we're headed, what is it that we, know for our future and can plan against and plan for. And it might be worth taking a look at that. I think PAC could play a role maybe in more short-term type approaches while there's longer-term approaches being discussed in long-term finance.
Right. So, sounds like there's more discussion that needs to happen. So, I guess the goal, so it sounds like what we need to figure out is what is the priorities that we have, and trying to make this as clear as possible to department heads as we kind of navigate through this, because I understand that it's a little challenging and difficult. And I know since we've, kind of talked about it during our budget season in September, it's been, I feel like every time we've had a meeting, it's been on the agenda to talk about, which means maybe we're not making it clear to people. But I'm also, as we are having the conversation personally, I'm still liking what we are doing right now. Just because I feel like, again, like I said before, like I think it's like, what is the point of having the hiring freeze if we are not, it feels like all the work and, things that we put into it has just, it's kind of been a lot, and then sometimes we're just gonna have to stick to things. and people might not like it. But you know, that's just what it is. But I'm always, apparently, the magic word of the day is compromise and collaboration. So I'm of hope and intentions that we can learn something from those C words that we use a lot in county government. So, yes, Councilor Decker.
One thing is, I think one of the reasons we struggle with this is because I don't think it's the intention of anyone that life in a department gets worse or that anything, it's an effort to try to keep things from changing by changing them in the most subtle way possible. And to me, when I was supporting this notion, and I can recall this very much during the budget, I saw this as a way for departments and council to be really thoughtful when an opening comes to say, is there any way that opening makes you think about the way you're doing that position or that services while someone's now not currently in it, that might get you to rethink that versus the alternative? And the alternative is this: we either in the last budget would have went in and said, cut this position, cut this position, cut this position, or cut these services in lieu of that position, and nobody really wants that. They also don't want it in a year. And I think that this is and I really mean that. I mean, I get up here and I wail about the state. President Crossley wails about the state. But that and a quarter, they don't really care until voters tell them otherwise. And voters are being real quiet on this one. It goes one way or the other. And so to me, it would be a thoughtful interchange where a department would say, you know what? And by the way, I'll say this, I've never heard a department ever say, I don't need that position, or there's not a good reason. In fact, every spending item, there's a compelling reason why it has to happen. And I've gone into somewhere I'm like, they will never be able to talk us into this. And by the end, I'm like, my gosh, that was better than Netflix. I agree. That was the most compelling argument. And a lot of times, the overwhelming majority, it's just because we just didn't understand it or what have you. But this is an ability for, to me, a department to say, rather than do this later with this council, or rather than have done it last time, this is a way to think through, is there any way in these tougher times? And again, telling associations, telling other folks that what tough times look like when these things get done. I'm sure that's not the answer anybody really is looking for here, but this is just a mess because it's a darn mess.
The auditor has her hand up.
Yeah, just to round out this discussion and maybe for the public, we have been looking at fiscal impacts. We have what we receive from the state as far as, the impact to property tax, but those are estimates, of course. And for local income tax, we won't have the state estimate for that until, we apply. We opt into to the new taxes, and it will be mid-2027. So, because, they come through in 2028. So, and there is still talk about changing some of that legislation as well. So it really is kind of the perfect storm because we don't have that magic number yet. It's just unknown. So it's very unfortunate, but we do have an impact we provided. However, it is, again, an estimate based on the information we know now. So I can resend that so it's circulated again amongst the council if that's helpful.
That would be appreciated. Thank you. Yes, Councilor
So I think one thing that I for sure heard loud and clear in the meeting, the PAC meeting, from those departments who did attend was the fact that we have this preliminary form. And I think the form, for whatever reason, they were feeling was quite onerous. So if we do ask them to come back, are you asking them to come to the council itself or go through PAC or Human Resources and our council staff with a form, or what would be the council's personal, or not personal, but preferred is the word I'm looking for, preferred preference there.
And that's actually on the next item, the forum
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm curious about that too.
Because that was the big discussion,
Okay.
was the form and
Okay.
how long that was going to take. That was
Okay.
a big part of the discussion.
Okay, so is there any other council member questions or comments related to the hiring freeze right now? Yes, Councilor Wiltz.
So, I recognize that we don't have consensus on what it should look like. I do think we need to come up with something quickly that clarifies and maybe that's the next agenda item. I mean, maybe I'm confusing them, but our departments really need to know what our thinking is on this, and I guess ahead of our next meeting, which is
Next Tuesday.
next Tuesday, that's when we have several of these positions coming before us for really kind of a decision, right? And it would be good for us to come up with guidance for our own sake, and maybe that's I don't know. I'm feeling a little like we haven't finished, and we need to kind of finish.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm gonna go to Council Hawk. Maybe she has some insight on this. Council Hawk.
You're not going to like my insight. We already know how much we were spending into the deficit and had to make up for it out of those dollars that we were thinking we were going to move forward with the jail. Well, now the commissioners and the public are saying, well, what are you doing? Well, we didn't want to cut the budget. We really didn't. And so rather than cutting it, for the most part, it got moved over into another fund, which was supposed to be for the jail. So why would anyone question that the need to reduce spending? We are already spending more than we're bringing in, unless we plan to just forget about the jail altogether and just keep spending that economic development, which will actually be a part of the 1.2 by mid-2027. That's what we're looking at. The other thing is, we really do not know what our property tax revenue stream is going to be, because of all the new credits and so forth and deductions that is put in place, and how much of that change is going to affect what our revenue is actually going to be. It may be better than what we thought, because we were looking at the numbers that the state sent us was like, remember, there's the credit for all the homesteads of $300 or 10% of the tax bill, whichever is less. So we don't really know for sure what's going to be $300 per homestead or 10% of the part that's left. So for us to say, well, we need to have a definite price tag set on these things, we do not know. And we should just absolutely give ourselves some grace, because we don't know the future. Now, we can make some projections, but what we do know is we're already spending more than what we're bringing in. Unless we go to the edit money.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Yeah.
Councilor Hawk. That was some good insight. I appreciate that. I think I saw some movement over here. Okay. Everybody's like, nope, not me. All right. So I guess, because technically we were opening the discussion for an amendment, and the amendment that we heard from Ms. Turner King were to add some more exemptions to the resolution.
Sorry, my mic is being really
It's all
sensitive right
weird
now.
tonight. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I think I started this off by switching C and D inadvertently. But I think we can do them together.
So, let me try to share my screen. This is the draft resolution that I think encompasses, I'm trying to make bigger. So, let me make sure. The first, it says amended up at the top. The first thing it does is add residential specialist positions and residential coordinator positions at YSB to the exemption list, which would cover the 24-hour facilities. I will say that YSB would like a broader exemption, or for consideration of a broader exemption that just says anything, let me pull it up. Residential coordinator and specialist position, and also required positions by the Indiana Administrative Code, which would include administrative and supervisory personnel. I don't know if that encompasses all of YSB positions, but they would like the addition of that language. So if you're amendable to such, I could put that in, or you could leave it as is, or as proposed. Thoughts?
Wouldn't, you had mentioned earlier, or other mandated statutorily positions. Wouldn't that cover that?
Currently, there's not language in there that says or statutory positions. I can add that as a 4. Councilor Wilkes?
One thing that we did talk about in PAC was the idea that although there are exemptions for these, and I think the context was more of the public safety, merit deputies, jail, the jail staff, there are administrative positions that wouldn't be covered. And so I'm hesitant to say, yeah, include your administrators. I get that people need to have supervisors to get their jobs done, but an automatic exemption maybe is a step too far on that. I don't know.
And it looks like Vanessa Schmidt from YSB has her hand up. Maybe she can add to that conversation there.
Sure, if it's appropriate, I would just add in that for our positions, these are positions that are required to receive licensure to operate our emergency shelter. And so it does not cover all of the positions by any means at the Youth Services Bureau, but there are a few positions that you are required to have as licensed positions to operate the emergency shelter.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I guess for Ms. Turner King, could this suffice if we added the language of mandated statutorily positions? Could that be okay with that?
I guess that would be a clarifying question. Are you adding specifically mandated statutory positions for YSB or any mandated statutory position within county government?
I guess initially, I thought you had mentioned that it was.
Initially, I proposed positions exempt as required by Indiana Code or Indiana Administrative Code. Add the code. It's Indiana Administrative Code 21148, which is administrative and supervisory personnel. That is what that code section is entitled. It would cover, if I add that language, it would cover those specific positions as referenced by Ms. Schmidt.
Okay. Yes.
And other
Council
departments where there are statutory positions, is that what you're saying?
That was my clarifying question. Do you want to add the language specifically allowing the positions for covered by the IAC code for YSB, or are you requesting to add language that exempts any statutory position within county government, so not specific to YSB?
Yeah, Councilor Wiltz.
I would say any of them in county government.
Yeah.
As long as we are clear on how to define that. I think we are. I mean, I think you just look in the code and see, but am I opening up something I don't understand? Because I don't know what I don't know.
And I guess I will answer that question with what you just said. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know how many, I know there might be statutory duties clarified in the code.
Different.
And how those duties are delivered or what positions deliver them, I don't know is defined by code.
So is it clarifying to say positions mandated
By code.
in administrative code?
Or
And-
statutorily code. Yeah.
Any code?
Yes.
The
By law.
codes. And leave it at that, not duties, but positions.
So the code refers to the positions, is that right?
Without knowing what all of these codes are, I don't know that I can say it
Yeah.
refers to the duties or the positions. This specific IAC code refers to administrative and supervisory positions. If you think about the health department, they have core functions, and that's their statutory duties. And how those duties are delivered in the health department might be all in one position or in multiple positions. So I don't think there's a clear answer whether it's duties or positions.
Could you say statutory requirements?
Or because it sounds like there's more research that needs to be done before we get into that. Is that something that right now we could, do with trying to, what we heard from Ms. Schmidt related to YSB? Could we fix that? And obviously, we are not fixing all of the resolution problems in one night tonight, but is that something that we could look at for later?
Yes, I think you could look at it later. We could add the YSB specific language tonight. But I could comb all of administrative code and Indiana code and still miss some statutory requirement because I don't run the health department, so I don't know everything that they're doing. I think it might be simpler, and I would maybe suggest, and I know we've talked about it a little bit. At the last meeting, we were looking at a form and trying to define a process to evaluate positions. Maybe the process is amended to departments submit a request, and then that request is just added onto the council agenda. And one of the things council considers in the full conversation is this position fulfilling statutory duty or a statutory position? Because if anybody can tell you that, I'm sure the department's asking for the position can.
Councilor Friedel?
I was just thinking that somehow it seems like that they could self-select out if they know that they meet that statutory requirement, right? The department, if the department knows that that it is statutorily required, would they not be able to say statutory requirement, yes, and then that's it, right?
If I was a department when I made the request to fulfill the position, I would probably note this is a request to fill said position, which is fulfilling a statutory duty, and put it right there in the request when they submitted it to council office.
And then that would be.
They know the code.
And then that would be sort of the end of that, I would think, right? They wouldn't go any further anywhere, is that right? Would that be the end of it, or would it have to still come to council?
I think that's a council question,
Okay,
whether
yes.
you wanted that to be the end and you just relied on the department head providing the code, or if it goes to full council and and that's part of the consideration.
If we were to do the 90-day pause, then that gives time for us to really find out if we're talking about statutory duties being performed versus a statutory position or a position required by a professional certification, that's needed to then carry out the duties. I mean, there's some nuances there that I agree the department heads will know. I think blind faith in having them differentiate between what is a statutory duty being performed by a position versus a statutorily mandated position might be something we want to ask. Might have a little bit of eyeballs on.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ms. Turnkey.
So going back, I just added language to number 3, which is the added exemption for YSB only, because they're 24/7 facilities similar to the way the jail and the sheriff's office runs. And so it's residential specialist positions, residential coordinator positions, and or positions required by 465 IAC 21148 within the Monroe County Youth Shelter Bureau. That would be statutory positions specific to YSB, but not everyone else. Is that language amendable to council?
I say yes. Anybody?
So I think the easiest way to do this is to go line by line for potential amendments. And so if that language is amendable, I would inquire whether there is a motion to amend accordingly. Just the sentence, not the whole resolution.
Council, I move to amend the resolution 2025-42 to reflect the changes in red on the screen.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion with council on this? No, but I see Ms. Schmidt has her hand up, so if she wants to unmute and speak. Yes.
I'm sorry. I just would hate for you to have to come back. If it matters, you might want to change Monroe County Youth Services Bureau instead of Youth Shelter Bureau.
Thank you.
Otherwise, thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Friendly amendment to my motion.
Consent.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh,
Could I ask?
Councilor Hawk, you have your hand up. You went away. I
Right.
don't see you.
I'm trying. Can you hear me now? I've messed
Yeah, we
with
can
it.
hear you. We can't
Okay.
see you.
I didn't hear what she said, changing the name of it to.
Youth services as opposed to youth shelter. So it's
And why would we do that? I thought we were doing the same thing because it's 24/7 operations for the shelter. And by the way, the name of the shelter, remind everybody, is the Morris Binkley home. It's not just the youth shelter, it's named after Morris Binkley. And so I thought we were tying that to the same thing because 24/7 as a jail, which is 24/7. So with this, are you saying then it would be all other positions? I'm not sure I understand, but regardless, I think we need to make sure that the shelter operations are covered.
I can read that I can read that administrative code section if it helps. It says the Child Caring Institute shall employ staff to perform administrative, supervisory, service, and direct care functions. The functions may be combined only upon the approval of the department. And then it sets out requirements for the administrator and supervisory positions. And then.
That sounds good.
Okay. So that should suffice. And that covers the shelter and that covers what Councilor Hawk's concerns are. Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So scrolling down, I've highlighted this yellow section because this is our current process. The elected official or department head submits a request. If it gets sent to council, if no council member responds within 48 hours, the request is deemed denied. And then if a council member responds, it goes on to the council agenda. We haven't identified, I don't think, a way to evaluate these requests. And until we do, we have multiple requests lingering. So should we amend the procedure temporarily and so we can figure out or iron out the details of how you want to evaluate the request to simply be, once a request is received, it will be added to the next council agenda for further discussion by the full council. No elected official and or department head shall move forward with the hiring and or transfer of the requested position until after the full council has the opportunity to consider and approve the hiring of the position at a public meeting. And so this would make it, every request is just coming to you for discussion.
And yes, Councilor Wiltz, and then I'll go back to Councilor Hawk.
First of all, yes, I think that seems like a stopgap for right now, but don't we need to vote on the one amendment?
Yes, yes, that's
sorry.
what I wanted to make sure. That's what I was gonna say. Excuse me. Oh, Councilor Hawk.
Yes, I didn't hear, she said we need to vote on which part? Can
We needed to vote on Councilor Wiltz's amendment to what Ms. Turner King had,
It's
had
highlighted in
put
green.
in the green for item number 3. Do you see that?
Oh, right.
Yep.
Oh.
So that's what
So
we're.
let's
so-
do
right.
that, yeah.
Exactly. So, Councilor Wiltz's motion, was to, have that amended. So we need to vote on that. So, because Councilor Hawk is virtual, can we get a roll call vote on this, please?
Yes, this is on the amendment. Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Fidel,
Yeah.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hogg,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And then kind of going back into what we were looking at before.
Okay. Is it time for me to make my comment now on?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that I don't know about anybody else, but it seems to me that we are getting so much email, so much, that something very important could be coming through and it'll be missed somehow. So I think there has to be some other way of making sure. I think one of the things we need to do is sort of pull out some of the other miscellaneous things we're getting and have just an email that's just for council operation business. But until we get to that spot, I would not want it to be that it comes back just as email to us. And then if we miss it, I mean, does anybody else have that concern that maybe you'll miss something that because you
Constantly.
didn't respond, they didn't get to hire the person?
Yeah.
That's, we're all kind of shaking our heads, or nodding, I should say, in here as well. Because I don't, because of all the barrage of emails that we get throughout the day, some of us might have the intention of wanting to respond to it, and it gets buried in something, and we miss it, and we unintentionally miss something, and it could cause some consequences for a department head.
I believe that Ms. Turner King just suggested about having everything come to council
Right.
rather than needing a review would address that concern. And we still have the opportunity to make another amendment in the future if that's too much and
Right.
too cumbersome. But at least
Correct.
we get everybody heard at some point.
So what it would be doing is effectively, it renumbered it, and I don't really want to play with the word formatting right now, but it would strike what is now 4 and 5 and put 3, previously 3 and 4, and just put in place 3, which is what I read a minute ago.
Council, I move that we amend the resolution in question to reflect the wording that Ms. Turner King has on the screen.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Do I need to take public comment for this? All right, so I always forget about this. If there's public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Thank you. Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Decker?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
And so I don't know if you want to think about considering this, but so now if every position is coming to full council, is there information that council office or employee services can provide in advance of the council meeting that council would want to see, such as a fiscal impact or something like that, so that we can put it in there so when the requests come in, Kim doesn't call me and say, what should I do?
Councilor Wilkes?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
That's why we have the next thing on the
With the
agenda.
form.
I'm unclear if we're addressing all of this together, which is fine. I think that we did talk a little bit about that during PAC, and most of the information on that form is of interest. However, we heard from department representatives who felt like it was very cumbersome, and especially given the short time frame we were requesting. This is a little bit longer time frame, presumably, but maybe not. I mean, it depends on when the...
Well, and that's the thing. So if somebody submits a request, is this to be put on the next available agenda? I mean, they may send in a request on Friday which means, does that mean it goes on, for a Tuesday meeting? So I need some timeline there. And then with regards to fiscal impact, what are you looking for? Are you wanting like a fiscal impact if it's paused, or what is the position costing us right now per pay? I need more direction on what kind of a fiscal impact are you wanting?
And I see Councilor Hawk has her hand up.
Yes, I think many of us have seen, even yet just this year, where they wanted to hire, a replacement, but they wanted to hire them at a different price tag if we're going to, go by the numbers. And maybe they wanted to hire them at maybe it was going to be a higher number of years or something of the sort. And when you look at the difference, sometimes it was many thousands of dollars. So I think the fiscal impact should be just like if you were looking at it coming out of your own pocket. If you were paying $50,000 for something to begin with, and somebody says, can you keep doing it? Well, yeah, but now it's going to be $58,000, making up those numbers. We need to know what that's going to be.
So are you saying, Councilor Hawk, that you would like to see a fiscal impact in this?
Right, if we're talking, if you're talking about a position and you can see what the pay, what the person that's leaving, because we wouldn't be talking about if you didn't have vacant spot, we could see what is getting paid right now and at what level they were and what they want if they have somebody in mind they're going to replace it with, if it's not going to be that dollar amount. In other words, are we saving a little money? Are we spending a little more? And that's what I'd like to see.
Okay.
The
Understand.
departments.
Yeah, Council Wiltz or Fido.
And also, maybe highlight whether or not we're not paying anybody in between those two people, right? Is there some cost savings there? So the total fiscal impact, right? Yeah.
But then I also hear, so to come back to staff to figure out how we can help you with this, because the idea is we need to have a deadline for people to get this information in, because a couple of things. One, we understand that people want to make sure that they are, trying to scoot in to get things on the agenda. At the same time, it is also like there are deadlines for a reason. And so, staff can only do what the department can do, or, which is to get your information in on time. So I do think that whatever deadline that we have, I guess I would like to ask Michelle, like, what comfort level are you? Because we should not be, if we don't have a deadline, people could literally email at 3:52 on a Tuesday afternoon and say, we want to be added to this agenda. And therefore, then we can miss things as well. And then some people get upset because they weren't added to the agenda. Now they think they might be cited, and we're not caring, and all of those things there. So we need to have a deadline to be put into place, because everybody knows that we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, and there's a certain time frame for that, to get those things in. Of course, we know that things happen and it comes up, but at the same time, like, what comfort level would you be in? In the auditor's office too, because that's both of our office, both council and auditor's office work in tandem to put together the agenda.
Yeah, I think the deadline is like the Monday is a Monday prior to the Tuesday. It's at least a week and a day. I would say, at the latest it would be that Wednesday, because we're still, making adjustments to the agenda, but I wouldn't do anything past a Wednesday. I would say that it would then automatically just go, if it's past Wednesday at noon, it just automatically goes to the next meeting.
Got it.
Because that would allow enough time for them to get the required information that we need to be included in that packet.
Yeah.
So if they can't get it by the packet date, and the packets go out, if there's not a holiday, they will go out around 1, on Fridays is I think the goal, before the end of the day on Friday.
Got it.
So if we can't get that information, then, I think it just has to automatically be forwarded to the next meeting.
So to interpret what you're saying into something that we could make a rule on, it would be noon,
It should be
3 days before the next meeting day.
Working days.
3 business working, whatever.
Non-holiday.
days. Yeah, working days.
And if received after,
Okay.
and if received after the deadline, it automatically goes to the next agenda. Again, this puts ownership for department heads, because I work in other entities where sometimes deadlines aren't, they're there and people act like they don't see them. And I think this is like, there's a give and take. There's that collaboration word that we're going to use again, because therefore you want this, so help us help you by putting, getting us this information. And we want to make sure that we are doing that, because if we're asking for fiscal impact, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So it's a team effort. Okay.
That's not really part of the resolution, right?
Correct.
This is just,
This is just for her knowledge to understand how to proceed.
now we got your policy procedure situation.
Putting it into the,
Actually,
yeah.
in blue now, this is a multicolored resolution. I think I've incorporated your comments. So requests for the next council agenda may be submitted up until noon 3 business days prior to the publication of the council packet. If received after this deadline, the request will be considered at the following council meeting. I don't like the following council meeting, though. Sorry, that was an out loud thought.
Next available council meeting?
The next scheduled.
Yeah, next scheduled.
Regularly scheduled. Because there could be a budget, there could be
And then,
special.
and I also added language related to the fiscal impact conversation. So, in preparation for the council meeting, the elected official and/or department head shall provide with the request a fiscal impact that reflects a difference in current position cost and the cost of the position at minimum salary level and/or the cost of salary at the level of a transfer into the position. This information will be verified by council office for discussion at the council's meeting. So that puts it on the department to be like, all right, I have this person leaving at an 8-year level, I'm gonna hire in at a minimum, this is the cost savings, and then Michelle would verify the accuracy of those numbers. So she's not doing all the work, which might make this a little bit faster.
Okay. All right.
Does that physical impact information have to come with that request? At the same, there's a deadline, the same deadline applies to that? I might, yeah. I think it could be clarified.
Well, I think the idea, or at least my idea in drafting this on the fly, was that the fiscal impact information would be included with the request in the packet so that all council members would have it. So presumably it would be submitted at the same time as the request.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wasn't sure that was, I mean, yeah.
Well, you could
carry on.
say requests and all needed it, subsequent information.
Substantiating
Yeah.
documentation.
There we go.
Yes.
That's what that's,
Because you want the whole package, you don't want it coming in piecemeal. Then
So-
something gets lost.
I just amended it to the elected official and/or department head shall submit simultaneously with the request of fiscal impact.
Yeah. All right. Is there any other questions or comments related to this?
I think just for clarity, because we do have some departments with multiple positions that are the same, they need to state the title as well as the fund and account lines, because sometimes they may have, just for instance, we've got jail who have positions in different funds. But so I think we need to have, what fund and what the position title as well as the account line that is specific to that position.
Okay. Okay. So it says request should specify the fund, position title, and account line specific to the position being requested. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from council related to this? This?
okay. I just want to make sure that it couldn't be misconstrued that what we mean is that by the next regularly scheduled council meeting doesn't really mean the next one from that moment. It means the one after.
If they miss that deadline.
I know what we mean. Is that what that says? Where she's typing.
Well, it says if received after
changed
deadline.
it, though. If received after this deadline, the request will be considered at the council meeting immediately following the next regular scheduled meeting. So it skips a meeting, right?
That's kind of what I was saying, yes. Thank you. Council, I move that we amend the resolution to reflect the changes in blue on our screen.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Are there any other additional questions or comments from council related to this motion? All right, seeing none, if there is public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams.
I had a question. Sorry.
Councilor Hawk.
What do you mean by publication? Wait, it got moved. There was something in there that said something about before the publication. Do you mean just like before you send it out to the council members, or
Yeah.
what
Distribution.
do you mean publication?
Distribution of the final council packet, or, yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's fine, because when you say publication, it almost makes you think you
Right.
gotta send it off to,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
Get it bound.
Good catch.
Offer the amendment to the motion.
Second.
For my mic is really messed up tonight. For clarity, it says request for the next council agenda may be submitted up until noon 3 business days prior to the distribution of the council packet occurring on the Friday before the council meeting.
Yep, that's a lot, but yes.
It is, but it's very specific. That's
Yep.
all I can- it should be.
We are just trying to make it all clear.
Okay, we accepted and you seconded, so we're all good with that.
Yep. And I see Ms. Schmidt has her hand raised again.
Just as public comment, just to clarify, if we are requesting to fill the position at the same time as submitting that fiscal impact, if we don't know who's going to apply as far as if they have previous years with the county, would you like us to just leave that blank? Because we don't know who will be applying at that point.
No, my suggestion is to always put minimum in there, because if you're not going to make a transfer in with someone else or something like that, you know that at least there's going to be a minimum.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If that's what the council wishes.
No, that's good.
So do we have any other public commenters?
Is that going to appear in the language, or we're just clarifying without appearing in the language?
I incorporated it into the language, so now it says, in preparation of the council meeting, the elected official and/or department head shall submit simultaneously with the request a fiscal impact that reflects the difference in current position cost and the cost of the position at a minimum salary level and/or the cost of a salary at the level of a transfer into the position if known at the time.
All right. And seeing no other public comment, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Fidel,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Decker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay.
The only other suggestion I have at this time for this resolution is to eliminate the chart, which takes up a lot of room, and it just has become cumbersome because the positions reflected in the chart had a higher date of November 1st, which has since lapsed. So I amended the language to say department heads, or this would allow for the elected official and/or department head to continue hiring the following positions. This exemption grants the department until the date explicitly noted within the chart, and it eliminates them all except the correctional center, who was granted until December 31st to hire the facilities manager.
All right.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Also move.
All right, and I'll second that motion. All right. So any other further discussion on that item? It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so seeing no other further discussion from council, if we have public comment, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Natty Hill room or raise your hand via Teams.
So this is on the amendment because we're amending it again, right?
Right.
For the list.
Yep.
Okay,
This is to remove this.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
I think that's all of my suggested amendments.
Counselor Wiltz?
I would like for us to consider / discuss adding to the exemptions positions in our justice system that are in addition to the corrections officers and the merit deputies. And by that, I specifically am referring to certain attorneys that right now we are pretty, I think, aware that they have differentiated caseloads and their caseloads are gigantic. They can't be just handed off. And I think in both our public defender's office and the prosecutor's office, I think those deserve a little bit of extra consideration. So I'm just throwing that out there to see if there's other interest in adding that to the exemptions list so that we're not unable to, for instance, prosecute juvenile crime because we have nobody in that position.
Okay.
Which, by the way, that's the position that's open.
Okay. I see Councilor Hawk has her hand flying up, so Councilor Hawk.
Right. Would all of these other plans for how they would come to ask for that position take care of that situation? I think if we make this so broad that we're really not going to have this hiring clause, or if it looks like we're being playing favorites in any way, because each department is going to believe that their position is the most important, and as they should. That's what a department head is supposed to do. So I wouldn't be in favor of adding any further right now into an exemption.
Okay. Any other council members that have any feedback for Councilor Wiltz related to that? Yes, Councilor Deckard.
I'm open-minded to it. I think this is going to be a continued discussion. One of the reasons I had some concern about us doing this to begin with was just the administration of it is the hardest part, and we went through it last time, and it was awful. And I don't mean that like, oh, whine, we've got to work. It's whine, you got to figure things out. Yeah. I'm not quite there on this one yet, although I see the points, and I think that we may have to come back to that for sure.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree with that because, again, then you have other department, and I'm not saying that they are not by any means. I don't want anybody to take into, what I'm saying, that I'm not caring about these particular things that Councilor Wiltz brought up. I just think that when we do that, we start now opening the floodgates for everybody saying that we're exempt. And we just got to be very careful or mindful of that, because then we do get into what Councilor Hawk was saying, the playing favorites we also might already be there, considering if you are certain department heads that feel like you should be on that exempt list and you're not, so that we already might be there in folks' eyes, yes.
I totally appreciate that. What about perhaps thinking of it as we've got the hiring freeze and we've got certain exemptions, but then maybe there's some that are not exempt but have that slow, like 90-day pause where we take that extra time. I don't know, just another.
That's
like,
the thing.
You know.
So I think that, so what I hear you say is if we don't have them exempt, are you saying then we use that 90-day time frame to gather the evidence to?
It's sort of like implementing that partial freeze, that hiccup, that still gets at saving money, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But recognizes that there are certain positions that, when going completely unfilled, are going to disrupt operations in county government. And that's sort of where I would see some of these attorney positions. Certainly not every administrative position in the prosecutor or public defender, but you know. And I don't know, maybe it's not every attorney position, but that's not.
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I just think we need to think about some of these, and before next week comes and we're trying to make decisions,
Yeah.
I want to at least get some of it out of my head.
That's a good point. I think I saw hands waved to Ms.
I guess what I hear Counselor Wolf's describing is perhaps implementing a tier approach, so that tier 1 would be a blanket exemption. So if you're listed, you don't have to ask. You don't have to ask us for permission. You're allowed to move forward with the hiring process. Tier 2 would be like a pause effect. So, for example, the prosecutor or the public defender attorney positions, which are very restricted by the amount of caseloads they can cover, would not immediately hire, but would wait 90 days before filling the vacancy. And having gone through both the public defender and the prosecutor's hiring process, I don't think you can get through it that fast.
Okay. So what I hear is maybe that's something that we need to think about. And we can maybe ponder and bring it up yet again at another regularly scheduled county council meeting. But I like, it's all, it's the cliffhanger. I think these are all things into consideration. So yeah, I would be willing to give it a thought. All right, now, you're welcome. Now we need to come back to the overall resolution to adopt it as amended, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But would it be helpful for me to draft a tiered approach resolution and send it to council for consideration? So you can see it on paper before the next meeting? Or not?
Sure. I mean, if I don't want to give you more work, but if that's something,
glutton
like,
for
all things
punishment.
into consideration, if we're all thinking into it, I think we're not ready to make decisions right now.
No.
But
It would be a draft.
it would be a big old draft. Got it. Okay. So now we come back to, but we need a motion for that.
I move to adopt the amended Resolution 2025-42.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second to adopt this resolution as much amended. Is there any other final comment related to this? I appreciate PAC and the discussions that come from that, and all of our council members here who have brought some things to the table. And again, it's not perfect, but it's something that we're still working on as we continue to go through this process and stand firm in trying to not spend more than what we are bringing in, as Councilor Hawk mentioned. So, all right. Now we go to public comment. So if there's public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room. Please entertain us. Or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hogg,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel. Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is item D, which is the hiring freeze request form.
Council, I move to open for discussion the development of a standardized hiring freeze request form to assist council and departments through this process.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second, and I'm gonna look to the two PAC members here to talk about this form, or Ms. Turner King. If you just want to open it up and then we're going to...
I can, but I
All
don't
right.
know if you want to have this conversation yet, because we kind of just amended it to not require a form, to kind of give you the opportunity to think about a form.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I withdraw the previous motion.
In my second.
All right, so there is no motion on that, and we will move forward. Thank you for that. Next up is item 8, which is new business, and that comes with the aviation department.
Council, I move to approve the aviation department's request in Fund 8957 0000 AIP project number 45 for the creation of new account line 3006. Let me read that back. Lines 30006 contractual and 30081 contractual county match and 30082 contractual state match, and simultaneously approve an additional appropriation of $157,895 in the services category.
Second.
All right, we got second. Our mics are taking a little bit of time to get used to us today. So we got a motion and a second, and I see Mr. Laverty is online. So if you'd like to unmute and go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm also traveling. The lake effect snow threw off my plans.
Oh, wow. Be safe.
But yeah, thank you. The Monroe County Board of Aviation Commissioners has recently been awarded an FAA grant to design and plan a refurbishment of the air traffic control tower at the Monroe County Airport. The tower, which is 53 years old, has critical equipment and infrastructure that supports an airport with over 28% growth in operations since the initial construction. A recent assessment found that the air traffic control tower equipment and HVA systems have exceeded their life cycles and are in need of a replacement. This project covers assessment, design, and project bidding. And the total project cost is $157,895, with the FAA contributing $150,000, state $3,947, and local match $3,948.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there any questions or comments from council for Mr. Laverty? Yes, Councilor Deckard.
Thank you, Carlos, for being here and for presenting this. I'm very interested in this and very supportive of it. I am going to ask you a real honest question, and if you need to get back with me later, that's absolutely fine. But I see FAA on this, and they've been in the headlines a lot. Do we have a solid belief these dollars will get here and we will be able to do this project and not be into what Councilor Hawk talks about a lot with grant funded positions where we're holding the ball and there's not a partner there? How good are you feeling about this?
A very good question. I actually feel very good about these. This award has been this grant has been awarded. We have signed for it. The dollars are in the system. Conversely, however, there was another grant that we had a verbal from the FAA to expect paperwork for approximately a week later. And that day never came, and they did give us a phone call and let us know that that project was no longer funded by the federal government. But when it comes to airport improvement projects related to the bipartisan infrastructure law, those projects are all good to go.
Thank you. Good news.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item from council? No? All right, so now we'll move on to public comment. If there's public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you. Next up is item B.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request for a category transfer in Fund 11140166 Lit Special Purpose YSB of $4,500 from the capital category to the personnel category.
Second.
All right, and still with us this evening via Teams is Ms. Schmidt. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Council. This is a category transfer request for us to be able to move that $4,500 into our part-time line. Those part-time staff directly support the Binkley House emergency shelter, and they are covering for staff on leave, vacation, benefit time, things like that, cross-training, as well as when we have an increased number of youth, sometimes our ratio has to change and we need a third staff.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments from council? I would say look to my right, but nobody's over here. And so looking to my screen, because I normally would say looking to my right and don't see any hands raised. All right, so we'll go to public comment. If there's public comment on this item, you could come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, next up, item C.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 41110000 donation BTCC of $1,500 in the services category.
Second.
All right, and also look into Ms. Schmidt to add anything to this item.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we would like to recognize the donations that we received for the MC3 sponsorship. So we received we received $350 from the Firefly Children and Family Alliance, $150 from Hopscotch Coffee, and $500 from Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, again, going to support our 10th annual summit coming up just in a couple of days. So we hope to see some of you there. And then we received $500 from a training our BTCC subcommittee did with the Bloomington Township trustee to deliver a de-escalation training to them.
Awesome. Yes. All right. It's what we've been waiting for all year. We've been talking a lot about it. So are there any questions or comments on this item from council? Looking to my screen. And then looking to my left. All right, and seeing none, if there is public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. You'll have up to 3 minutes. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we don't have any presentations or discussions. We will move on to county council business, and looks like we have item A for the recorder's updated, from the recorder's office, Black.
Council, I move to receive the recorder's amended sworn affidavit regarding the 2026 records perpetuation budget.
Second.
All right, and Michelle, what would you like to add to this?
During budget sessions and shortly afterwards, the recorder submitted her sworn affidavit for her perpetuation fund. We just recently discovered it had a Scrivener's error. It had the wrong year. So she has updated that, initialed it, and we do have a copy of that in the office.
Okay, thank you. Pretty self-explanatory. But is there any questions or comments from council on this item? Yes, Councilor Hawk.
Yes. When I was in discussion with the recorder, and at that point she was thinking she was going to have to ask for an additional appropriation. So unless something's happened, maybe she's still going to, and just not at this meeting. But what she was really addressing was, what is that noise? What she was really addressing was something that many of us have been talking about, which is travel and training issues. And so, whatever's going on, it's echoing. So I think that we need to take a really hard look at the travel and training, how much it's increased for different departments. Did you, I know we've had a lot of paperwork to look at, but that was pretty clear that we had some departments that were spending thousands of dollars more than they had in the past. And so we might want to take another look at that. For instance, with this elected officials training, just a few short years ago, the county council was not even included. And so those of us on the legislative group went to the state and said, we need to include the county council because it's important that we get the additional training, whatever it is that we need. And so we got that, but without some pushback at the state. And so I think we need to be cautious because I'm understanding that from the recorder that we were putting some of the staff members on that elected official budget. Now, maybe that really was in the unappropriated fund and not in that elected official fund, but that's what I understood her to say. So I think we have to be real careful because we don't want them to remove the ability for the county council, elected officials, to use that. And we have to remember also that there's a lot of additional training that's available online. There was just a really good one just last week put out by DLGF that went into talking about the different changes in the property tax and what each of the things could mean. And so I hope everybody's looked at that. And maybe that's what we have to be having the staff do, is those things that's available with DLGF or with the online training with AIC, instead of the very expensive overnight positions, overnight stays that's been happening. And we need to set the example for the other county departments, because I think unless the sky is going to open up and drop a bunch of money in our lap, we really have to start looking under every rock for every penny. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councilor Hawk. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments from council related to this item? All right. And seeing none, if there is public comment, you can come forward to the lectern here, the Night U Hill Room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. It's also good to say all of these words without hearing my voice crack. So yay for my voice coming back. All right. But seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Councilor Fox.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Hogg.
I said yes.
Councilor Wiltz.
Yes.
Councilor Crossley.
Yes.
Councilor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Right, thank you for that. Next up is item B with the 2026 council schedules.
Council, I move to open for discussion the proposed 2026 council meeting schedule.
Second. All right, Michelle, what would you like to add to this?
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
So in the packet, there are 3 options to look at with regards to calendar. And so the first option, which is option number 1, would be the typical council calendar. It shows the holidays, it shows PAC meetings. There would need to be maybe a deviation with regards to the PAC meeting in May because we have an election on the 5th. And then without any deviations with regards to November or December, this is what the first option looks like. So then there was somebody had mentioned maybe taking a summer break. And so with that, I used the same calendar with no deviations with regards to November or December, where with the summer break, we would have a meeting in June, on June the 9th, and then council would not come back and meet again until July. This would accommodate for, this past year, we had several council members out, with regards to, the summer break and traveling and this kind of thing. So that there was just an option to maybe have a summer break. And then the final would be this would be a summer break with holiday meeting deviation. And so what I'm looking at here would be if you start with in May, there is, what is that? It's Memorial Day is on the 25th. Maybe possibly canceling the meeting after that because people are still traveling with that. We would still have the break in June as well as the July meetings. And then with regards to budget sessions, the schedule that I have for budget sessions, which is in all 3 of them, are the same, except for this one where in October, where we're going to be meeting a lot of meetings, we would just not have that last meeting in October. Then in November, we would have a meeting on the 10th, and then tentatively, I can't say that, have a meeting scheduled for the 17th, as well as in December, we would meet on the 8th with a tentative meeting date on the 15th. And that's if you want to. And the reason it seems like we're getting ready to right now, we're just having back-to-back meetings in November and December. So if things aren't like pressing, you could just, do just once a month kind of thing. So these are just for you to look at. We also put in there, there's been a discussion with regards to Sophia Travis and moving those deadlines up so that we're not trying to do Sophia Travis as well as budgets during that same timeline of August, September, October. So this has not gone to the Sophia Travis committee yet, but these are the dates that we're going to present to them, and those are highlighted in that teal blue. So that does move all of that up during the month of June and July when this would happen with Sophia Travis. That is when the departments would be filling in their budget requests. So that's a little bit of I don't want to say downtime for the office because we are helping the departments, but it's not as time crunch with regards to getting the budget sessions and stuff together. So this is just, whatever you guys want. I just kind of put 3 options out there. I would like to maybe have a possible recommendation from you guys. Next week, we've got departments trying to plan for their next year. And so if we can get these out to the departments, that way they can go ahead and get some departments that we also use the Nat U Hill room. We need to get those out to the other departments. So these are just recommendations. If you have any other dates you want to see, or a different scenario, just let me know.
Okay. And I saw Councilor Fido had her hand up, so I'll go to Ms. Turner King first, then I'll go to Councilor Fido, and then Councilor Hawk has her hand up too.
And I just would add as a caveat in all of the options, the identified PAC meetings would be subject to how council handles the PAC pause.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Fido.
So I was interested to know, in each of the proposals you have here, how the total number of meetings compared to this year and previous years. Are we doing the same number of meetings? Okay, so I didn't add them up, so thank you.
Yeah, I just basically used what we've done this year, and I built upon it. The only thing that I did add was this year we had 6 budget sessions. Within those 6 budget sessions, because of everyone's time schedule and the way the departments felt, and it just seemed like everything was very lengthy this year. I believe it's going to be lengthy again next year. I added a 7th day to the schedule, which would be September the 17th, and I've used the budget sessions all across. The 17th would be strictly held for council discussion only. There will not be any departments scheduled to have their budgets reviewed during that. They'll have to do that those green dates that I've got there in September.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes, and I don't know whether it's at this time I should mention it, but I think we need to make it very clear that when there's going to be a discussion on whether or not we're going to do a bond, that has to come in much earlier than what we did it this year, because that dollar amount that was put on there for the bond, and we had to vote on it before we'd even voted on the bond, or whether we were even going to have a bond. And remember, and I'm not even saying for next year but for whenever, we're not going to get that 1782, that approval or disapproval of our budget, until the state sees that a bond has been sold. Well, if we don't get it started until to even discuss it and vote on it, then later and later, we're going to be maybe at the very end of this year or the beginning of next year before we'll even know if the state is approving our budgets. So I'm just saying we need to, oh, did I hear that word requirement being used of us? For us, the commissioners want to require something of us. And I think we need to require the people who are going to ask for a bond to begin much earlier. So whether that needs to be on this document with a deadline for that or not, but that has to happen, because we're going to be sitting here. We still don't know whether or not where we are on those budgets.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I saw some hands flying up, so Michelle, and then Ms. Turner King.
So I failed to mention that option 1 is our regular schedule that we've done in the past. Option 2 and 3 does eliminate a few days throughout the year. So I wanted to make sure that you understood that. So option 1 is reasonably close to what we've done in the past.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Turner King?
I don't know this is the best time to make the remarks, but Councilor Hawk's comment made me remember that at the last council meeting, there was a discussion on establishing a timeline and procedure for future bonds. And that discussion was tabled to this meeting, but has it been inadvertently left off the agenda? So we can address that at the end of the agenda as to whether you want to table it to the next meeting or what you'd like, how you would like to proceed with that.
Yeah, because we definitely need to have a conversation of that, and honestly, we're missing people. So I think, I mean, that is a very good point, because having it late in the game when we're already through budget season it was challenging and frustrating, to say the least. And I think if we have those conversations ahead, I would think maybe June, that would get our minds and our bearings right as we are gearing up towards budget. But again, since we're not all here, and we have 2 missing council members that are present, it might be a good idea for us to have that conversation on the 18th. Yes, I see the auditor has her hand up.
Sure. Just a note, we are actually just waiting on that bond closing so we can get that information to the DLGF. They have everything worked out except for that. So that is kind of what holds us up this time of year. But if I remember correctly, when speaking with Mr. Cockrell, I believe there are specific reasons for doing it late in the year, but I don't want to speak for him, so he'll have to explain that.
Sure. And I think we also, speaking of bonds and things too, to kind of gear us up for thinking about budget, I thought it was discussed, and maybe a couple of meetings ago, where we could possibly have like an update throughout the year so that we know and understand what is happening, so that when we do have that bond conversation ahead of budget, we have already in our brain like what has been done, so we can think about that. I think Councilor Decker has his hand up, so I'm gonna go to Councilor Decker, and then I'll go back to Councilor Hawk.
So my question was, Michelle, you wanting us to take a look at the calendars, consider it hard and fast, come back and be ready to move on this next time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
One thing I'll just say, there's always something wrong in a calendar the minute you get it. I thought the calendar for this year was pretty good, and then we start rolling it out, and there's always something. But one thing is, given everything we do is going to be more time intensive and more hard. I don't know how else to say it. And probably less rather than, or probably more rather than less. And so I think it's adventurous to try new things with the calendar, but the reality is, then when you're not in here, people are going to need you in here, and it just is what it is.
Councilor Hawk.
I think maybe I was going to ask a question, but it's not really relative to the schedule. So, I mean, I just want somebody to put together what our tax rate is going to be, the realistic one, and not include the bond, and then we can put in that later. But, you know, if people are saying what's going to happen with my taxes for next year, we don't even know what those rates are going to be. This is just real frustrating.
I understand. I think I'm inclined maybe to like the second or the third one. I think agreed, as some of us that have been on Sophia Travis, plus this year budget purgatory sessions that we've had, it was a lot. And I think for council staff, auditor staff, and you know, Ms. Turner King as well, that was a lot to pack in 8 weeks. So I think we need to give ourselves a break. Ideally, what I would have liked to have done was, after we passed our budget this past year, to cancel the October 28th meeting. But then that turned into a session where we needed it, and turned into be our marathon meeting. So that was fun. But also, that being, to say the least, and with that being said, and thinking of what Councilor Decker said, we've added meetings this past year. I think of the pre-meeting that we had on the 8th of October, right before we had our final budget discussions and approvals. So there's probably likelihood of us maybe adding it. But also the other key part is to give ourselves a break in June and July. And most importantly, I'm thinking of council, like the council, county council, but I'm also thinking about staff and department heads who don't feel obligated to make sure that they come here. I think there's a work-life balance that I'd like to hopefully think that we have in county government, at least try to work towards that. So I would really like to see how we could kind of have that as an option. Our colleagues in the city love themselves some breaks too, so they have that, and I think that actually helps. You come back and you're refreshed and you're ready to go. So again, nothing is final. This is a presentation, and we'll hear it again next Tuesday, November.
Also, I wanted to let you know that Councilor Henry is online again.
Oh,
so
okay. I know he was saying he wasn't sure. Okay. Hello. All righty. So we have Councilor Henry and Councilor Hawk via Teams, the duo. Okay. All right. So next up, so we'll think about all of this, and then we'll bring it back to the table here next Tuesday. All right. Next up is what we were trying to get into earlier this evening, but what's really on our agenda. So let's go to item C.
Council, I move to open a discussion regarding outlining the next steps for the Justice Center.
Second.
Okay. And I see that we have Commissioner Madeira that's in the room. So if you want to go ahead and come up to the table here, and I see we have Commissioner Thomas joining us as well, so we can have the discussion, because I think what I'd like to do is to have those questions that were highlighted to us at the beginning to kind of look at as well. And I'm sure that we all kind of wanted to make comment at our marathon meeting, but we were so overworked and tired that we all went home here after that. I guess, you know, I'll open it up, and then we'll kind of have the conversation. And we talked about this. I was able to be a part of the noon edition on last Friday with Commissioner Thomas and former council member Eric Spillmore, who is now the Greater Chamber, or now with the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. And so it was a rather robust conversation. So if folks want to go back and listen to it, you can. I guess the only thing that I would like to add to all of this is I appreciate the commissioners coming back and taking me up on my offer. Even, you know, not getting a response back from, you know, until here, we're here now. And as I mentioned, I completely understand that we are, folks can be disappointed. That's the thing. But to stay in disappointment is a disservice to what we have to do here. And we now need to put differences and disappointments aside and go, now we got to come back to the drawing board, because at the end of the day, we still have folks that are in the Justice Building that are there. We got to come up with a plan. We have all things that we now have to consider. So I want us to do that. The other thing that I really want to highlight is I feel like my colleagues, all 7 of us, we all have many different beliefs, but I think it was pretty clear and unanimous 2 weeks ago, our reasons for the vote that we took. But again, we don't have to go back into the past. We're now trying to move into the present and the future here. So I pledge to my colleagues on the commissioner's side, if we truly, really want to have collaboration, and we really want to have, we can share the court, we can dribble, shoot, throw passes like Mendoza and Cooper did on Saturday, and boy, was that a team, and I can only imagine what that would look like if we had that same mindset mentality in county government. So I would really hope that we really say and what we mean when we talk about collaboration, because I will tell you, at times during this entire justice conversation, I do not feel like council has been respected. I do not feel like our voices have been heard. I do not feel like the collaboration effort has been a part of this process. So there's, just as you all feel disappointment, there has been disappointment on our end, but yet we continue to persist and we still keep trying to move forward. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing that I want to highlight, because I'm not certain if we have any folks from the city watching via Teams or watching this on Cats right now, or will watch it back later. But what I would like to say, because it's been all in news media and different things like that, what I would like to say is this is the time for any city council colleague, any 9 of you who are watching or paying attention or will watch later or will hear from this meeting. This is your time now, where you've told us that your reasons why you don't want to have, or why you didn't want to have North Park. But there really wasn't, honestly, any solutions or suggestions that came with that. So I'm gonna ask my city council colleagues, help us out in this particular time frame. I know there were emails that were going back and forth of how they think they could contribute, but I think we can take it a little bit further and figure that out. And I appreciate those colleagues that gave that response, but to some of you who have not, I'm still waiting. So let's get it started. Let's keep moving forward, because we got work to do and the clock is ticking and overtime is in full swing. So with that being said, I've said what I needed to say. I'm gonna kick it back to my council colleagues, and then I really want to talk about really next steps. What are the next steps that we can do together? I don't want to hear one side of this or that. I want to talk about what we can do together in this conversation. So I see Councilor Henry and Hawk have their hands up, and Councilor Henry had his hand up first. So I'll go to Councilor Henry, Hawk, and then I'll kick it back to here in the Nat U Hill room.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Can you hear me in the room okay?
Yes.
All right, it's a little delayed at my end, so I'll just try to be brief. And thank you for getting me back in. I am between classes right now. So I agree with you that we maybe need to set aside the maybe autopsy as to how we got to this point, but to accept that we're at this point. I think that one thing, rather than maybe working through a question set, which is a reasonable idea, is to maybe take an approach where council passes a resolution about what its risk tolerance is for funding a future jail and or justice center. I also think that the budget is now driving this project, and I think, as I was saying earlier, I think we need to get to a point where we all have a same understanding of the conditions. It's clear that we don't. And I can appreciate why that might be. I mean, if you took a vote and felt you had your marching orders to move forward and you didn't want to acknowledge, the changes in tax code, the consequences of an election, all that stuff. And then you lifted your head up and realized that, that things were changing. I could see us getting there, but the budget now drives the project. And the truth is, this body has decided that we don't have that risk tolerance for a budget that we are going to try to figure out how to fund the rest of county government for 20 years on. That's really important. So I think something about, a setting of what we think we can manage and then having the budget drive the project is really where we need to start. So I don't really accept the idea that we will go down a path and ask these questions and talk to the stakeholders internally and end up exactly where we are, because that is, to borrow a term from the city council, deterministic, right? It's setting expecting that we're going to arrive at the same outcome, and I just don't think that's the case. So what I think we need to do is figure out how the budget works, what we can afford, and then we need to have serious conversations about what is nice to have relative to what other communities do in Indiana. Co-location is not something every county in Indiana does. law enforcement has worked out ways to do transport of inmates from a facility to another facility in multiple counties in Indiana. And while it may be a state-of-the-art practice or something that would be nice to have if we had unlimited resource, we don't. And also to say that we can't manage the risk management of that without that, I think it's just not accurate at the end of the day. So I think another thing this ordinance or this resolution should do is we need to get to common terms about what we all agree is actually happening or not happening. It has been suggested in the media that this is unconstitutional as is. I don't think that's the case. I think we've kept the jail constitutional within the agreement of the ACLU. I don't think we're agreeing on the terms. So if we can agree on common terms, common grounds, common understanding, common risk tolerance and budget, that will frame what this next step looks like. But let's be honest, co-location is what doubled the cost of the project. We know this, it needs to be addressed and needs to be explained to staff that maybe this is a thing we're going to have to move away from if people want to be in new facilities. I'll just leave it there as a starting block and understanding how others want to talk. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilor Hawk. You're muted, Councilor Hawk.
Okay, I just have a question, and perhaps that no one's wants to discuss it at this point. Some of these things, people are just sort of working behind the scenes. But from what I gathered, we have several people in the community that are coming forth with what-if situation. And so I would like to suggest that when people make a suggestion of a location or a different way of operating or whatever, that we keep that list and we don't just keep it within a few people, but that we share it with all of the council members. I don't like it at all when I hear, oh, we'll just send this to, to the leadership group. I mean, I think we all feel like we're leaders, and but there's going to be a lot of different suggestions coming forward. And I think that people are really engaged in toward making sure that we don't take forever to make a decision. And that's what it's going to take if you start going back into these committee meetings with every different department. We're going to be right back where we were because, as you know, Jennifer, you sat on those meetings as well. So did Kate. Went on and on and on. And every meeting we had, a different department was coming up with their wish list. And before they got through, this wish list sunk the whole project. So I think we have to look, I agree with Councilmember Henry, we need to look at what it is we're required to do. And of course, this agreement with the ACLU doesn't require us to build a new jail at all. I don't know why everybody keeps saying it does. I think we ought, do they think we don't know how to read or what? But it doesn't say we have to build a new jail. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be thinking about what we can do to make that jail better in the meantime, because no matter what we find, we're not going to be moving there tomorrow. And because of changes at the state level, if some of these suggestions go through and makes it law at the state level, we're going to be required to have more. I mean, the result will be that we'll need more beds, not less. So those are things that I hope we'll look at. The other thing I wanted to share was that we had a member of the community come forward and say, how was it all this money got spent when we were not on board? I want to remind you that the purchase price of the property at North Park was something like $11,350 or $11,750, something like that. And we had a bond for that, bond anticipation note, and that had already been approved. And that's where all those dollars were getting spent down. And we didn't even see the appropriations going through because we'd given them a blanket check. And then when they came back and asked for $3 million and something, that was because they'd already spent $3 million and something out of the purchase price of the property. So that, I just wanted to share that as well. So, okay, enough of me. Sorry.
Thank you. And to clarify, Councilor Hawk, you said keep a list of locations. You're talking about locations that people are suggesting to the county? Oh, you're muted again.
So you can't hear my dog bark. Just for instance, if there's people who are making suggestions and moving forward, and I understand some of this really should not be out there in the public if we don't, we're talking about people's private property, and so we have to be respectful of that. But at least we need to make sure that the public knows that we're not just sitting around doing nothing, because I think there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of work behind the scenes that is not like, we're not going to throw people under the bus if they have a property they're thinking in mind, because that can affect their personal property values. So, okay, that's where I was.
Okay, thank you. All right, look down to my left here to see if anybody here had any other additions for things that we heard in our impromptu department update and the discussion that we're having right now. Yes, Councilor Deckert.
I will jump in and just say, we did have city officials, or a city official on behalf of the council, come in and offer some comments, and committed the city council at least to telling us some of their preferences. And I made a comment at the end of that I'd like for that to be a public thing on properties and or conditions. If that is a honest city position, I'd like that to be a public thing, because one of the biggest issues we face in this community is NIMBYism. And I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna own that. And when you have a jail, you have NIMBY on steroids. And there's always a reason not to have something near you, right? And sometimes we have very plain-spoken people that are like, I don't want that near me because blank. And then other people come up with very sophisticated arguments. And this community is notorious for those sophisticated arguments. And we do that about housing and the way you build your porch, let alone a jail. So for city officials who represent districts and have constituencies of, I don't know, Dave Askins will know, but like 6,000 or some odd here or there, depending on what's going on, I would be curious what areas they envision, because we heard a lot of arguments about downtown Bloomington, keeping downtown Bloomington rich and all that. So I would just say, if everybody's putting their stuff on the table, where are you talking about? And be specific. And more importantly, we cannot say transparency just at election time, say that publicly, okay? The other thing I would say is, I don't know. I keep coming back to the question, I don't know. And I've had a few silent people that don't get up at the public mic and were for us moving forward last week. I've had a few silent people reach out to me and get a little bit upset because they say the following. I'm going to try to sum it up. Everybody knows you guys have to do something, and you've been talking about this for years, and they get mad. But when it gets to the particulars, that seems to be where everybody falls off. The one particular that seems to be just choking me, I'm going to be very honest about this, is I don't know what we are legally permitted to do with bonding, with building, with that tax that we enacted last year. We worked on that gangbusters. And I get a little frustrated because I was in that chair to my right, and now a year has passed. And it's our fault, I guess, that we're not moving forward. We passed that a year ago, and I never have received an answer why at that time when momentum was going, something changed. And I'm sure the public's like, well, we're glad that you didn't do that then. But my point is, momentum seems to be hot and cool around here depending on time and month of ask. And so I don't know what we can do. And I'm not confident that I know what anyone up in Indianapolis knows about what we can do. And I know different ones of us have different faith in them depending on the year and the partisan control. But friends, I don't think they know literally when they are in for the next session what they will do. And I can't find a legislator that will stay still from this local area and talk about this issue. They want to talk about redistricting. That's fine. They want to talk about other things, but they don't want to talk about this one. And that tells me that there's not a lot of hot people beating the snare drum for the jail. This is the unmentionable, unforgettable, forgettable. This thing has all those components because, again, it goes back to what I kind of said at the end. Other than the folks that are in there and their families and some of the other comments we've heard, who says this needs to be this way or better? And so I am interested, and I mean that sincerely. I want to know what Ken Falk thinks about when he walks through what he observes. I remember the old 2008, 2009 articles. What do you see now? Right? This is not 2008, 2009. Those sheriffs, those systems, it's different. Or maybe it's, I don't know. You tell me, Ken Falk, because this is a lot about that. But then I will just say the bottom line is every time, and I said this to Kate Wiltz next to me during the meeting, I was like, my gosh, you can't resurrect the dead. That 2 weeks ago had hit a point where it's just, it's like you're trying to get Jell-O to build something that you could drive home tonight. And friends, it wasn't happening. And so for this to get to that point, some of these things have got to be a little bit more solid than not. And maybe it is, like Councilor Henry's saying, maybe it is a resolution that starts getting around particulars, but it is going to take a resolution that understands the needs within the system, to me, accurately talks about the word treatment. I think sometimes people who are elected officials talk about the word treatment and they have something in their head, and then there's actual practices going on that they don't know anything about, or they don't know as much. I think that's got to be accurate. I think the details have to be a little bit more refined. And I just feel like the I don't know is getting bigger. And my personal opinion is, it is hard to keep hammering a train down a line when you don't know what the cargo is doing or what you're doing or where you're going, or really if it's going to be safe when you get there. And that's kind of this system. I'm not saying this doesn't need to be done. I actually believe firmly, overwhelmingly, that it does, but the particulars are just choking it. So anyway, I've said too much, but those are just some of my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I will speak. I don't have a whole lot to say right now because I feel like we were pretty clear when we talked about our votes, whenever that was, couple weeks ago. Seems like 4 months ago at this point, but I actually don't mind being given the questions that were on the presentation. I think they're good ways to focus conversation and thinking. I think that they are conversational in that maybe we should really talk about that and find out where are our differences on some of these things as we move forward. I honestly don't think we're probably all that different. I can tell you that I don't mind compromising what I think on any one of these questions necessarily, but it's when, on top of compromising for 4 out of 5, and I'm just throwing that out there, I haven't seen these long enough to know, but compromising a good chunk of them and not knowing how we're gonna pay for this and whether or not paying for it might even, it's scary. It's scary. So it was too much. And I get that may not sound like this is why I feel we can't do it. Yeah, there are multiple reasons. There are multiple things. I felt like I'd made compromises. I felt like I'd been like, all right, okay, well, this is our best option. And then nothing happened except that, we occasionally, twice in a year, got an update on what was happening, and then all of a sudden, we're being asked to approve something after just having demonstrated, I think, pretty clearly that we do not have an extra penny anywhere So, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the current project at its current expansive level. I'm not unwilling to discuss it. I'm very interested in having conversations. So, as frustrated as I might sound, I really am interested in sticking around and hammering it out.
Councilor Fidel?
So, hammering out is what I've been doing for a long, long time. I look forward to hammering it out, or whatever we're going to call the process. I think getting together as many times as we can in earnest to talk about possible solutions that are feasible, both financially as well as meeting the goals of the people in the prisons who are unfortunately there, as well as people who staff the prisons, as well as the community who supports the prison. So I think there are a lot of different components to this whole thing, as always, but I'm more than willing to get down to business and meet and discuss anything, anytime, as long as we're making progress. I think it's important to have a good understanding that just to meet is not good enough. We need to have goals at those meetings. Maybe we're going to discuss 1 or 2 items. That's okay. It doesn't have to be all done in one session. But we need to have meetings that will produce results. I'm interested in results. And what is the impact going to be on everyone that's involved, right? So I'm looking forward to getting down to business, making decisions, and ultimately, hopefully, being able to have money to work with, because I don't think there's any guarantee at this point from what I see from the State House. I mean, there's talk of maybe it being discussed. Well, maybe discussed doesn't write the check, right? Where's the money to have that maybe discussion fund going to come from? So I think without the proper funding, it's going to be really difficult. But I want to hear all the options about how to make it work going forward.
All right. And I think to kind of wrap that up too, I'm writing down all the council members, as everybody has been talking, just kind of going through and jotting down what's really important. And I really like the idea of a resolution. I think honestly that might be the start for us to say, again, as it's been mentioned so many times, is the ball is now in our court. I'm going to stay in my lane now and figure out how to make that work, and let's go. So maybe that is the discussion by way of resolution, where we outline what we can and cannot afford, what it looks like to collate or co-locate and cost and whatnot. And maybe that's the opportunity for us to start there. I think if we set the bar for what we need to do with that respect, then we can really start having the other components and conversations to be put into play. Because again, as I mentioned before, we can't afford it. And I know folks went to go, talk to folks at the State House to figure out, what's happening, what's going on, and we still haven't heard anything about, their willingness. I know they're not in session right now, so it would be interested to see. But again, in interest of time, since we keep talking about, deadlines and things like that, let's, figure out a resolution, and let's maybe put that forward and continue to go. So yes, I saw Councilor Hawk had her hand put up.
Okay. I just want to remind us that even if the state said, yes, we'll let you double the amount of bond that you were going to have, or whatever the dollar amount is, that does not mean we should, because it will get paid out of that 1.2 income tax that we will be receiving if we even take it to the 1.2. And remember, that's where the economic development tax is going to be part of the 1.2. The jail tax is going to be part of that. Public safety is going to be part of that. And we've got to pay for all that stuff out of the 1.2 as well. And so just because the state would say we're going to allow you to do more, would we really do it? Because if we use up all that 1.2 for that, then that's also to operate the rest of the county government, and the other numbers that we're working at, the 0.4 for fire and EMS and the 0.2 for other governmental units, we can't even take it to 1.2 if the city takes theirs to 1.2, because that's going to get you up to 3, and all we can do is 2.9. And so I think we have got to look at the big picture. I know, I'm getting tired of me saying that, but we really have to. Because if we say we're going to use all this for this, then what are we going to say when the fire department say, but we need help? What are you going to do when the town, well, when Bloomington Transportation or the library wants something, or the townships want something? That's on there, the 0.2, and we may only be able to do 0.1. So we cannot just look at just the jail, because we've got to do a lot of other things.
Okay. So I know we have the commissioners. We have Commissioner Madeira that's joining us here in person, and Commissioner Thomas that's joining us virtually. Is there anything that you would like to add that hasn't been already discussed?
Yes, actually. So Councilor Henry mentioned that rather than work through questions, he recommended, look at the risk tolerance, perhaps arrive at a dollar figure. And I think if we just get a dollar amount, we don't get insight into your values and your priorities, and that's really important. Those are points arrived at working through the questions, and I think I agree, we all need to agree on what's actually happening, as to constitutionality, and what we're asking for is a conversation. I don't think we're calling anyone to account. Certainly, this is a power play. It's actually asking for something genuine, for a dialogue. And so I think that a dollar figure is not what we want here. We want something much more genuine. Councilor Hawk had this excellent remark. If we have people coming forward with property, we keep a list. We do have a lot of people coming forward and leading, and I agree. I also think it would be a great idea to involve people more, if we can, to convene a public committee of leaders to weigh in on these matters, if we can do so in an expeditious fashion. I think it's really important for the public to feel included and heard, and to know that their views matter. And I also think it's important for them to appreciate the weight of these decisions and how burdensome and weighty and important they are for government. And sometimes it's really easy for people to come in and talk in front of a public microphone for 3 minutes. But when they are forced to look at these documents, and all of them are available on our website, they really appreciate these documents and perhaps the weight of this information in a new way. So I think public participation may have a very important role to play here as well. I'm also scared about building an unaffordable facility. I also fear building a facility that will be inadequate for the next 50 years. I'm really scared, like you, about not meeting the needs of inmates and prison personnel and Justice Department staff. And one more thing, I do disagree strongly with the idea that we don't have to build a new jail, and with the fact that that's not mentioned in the settlement agreement. While that's may be technically true, if you look at the 4 corners of the settlement agreement, that doesn't matter one whit, I think. So we have an envelope of documents, and it's that envelope of documents that understanding is built on. It's not just the settlement agreement. We have to look beyond that. It's the studies that have been done, it's the committee meetings that have been held, it's the community surveys, including the CJRC surveys, it's the councils and the commissioners' actions that have been taken, and we've been moving forward as a community with one goal, which has been building a new jail and envisioning this new facility in this justice complex. So we can't suddenly openly say 20 years in that this is not the case and reverse course. This material is on our website. It's publicly available to every member of this community. And we invite you to review that if you think it's just the settlement agreement. So that is not just true. We cannot just look at the four corners of the settlement agreement and call it a day and say we cannot build a jail. We do not have to build a jail because it's not mentioned in that document. That is a simplistic and false notion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The only thing I want to challenge you, Commissioner Madeira, on, and I'm kind of going back and looking at my caption here, and seeing what was said. It says, and I heard it, so I want to make sure this is picking up what I'm hearing you say. It says, like you just said, we're actually asking for something genuine for a dialogue. So a dollar figure is not what we want here. We want something more genuine.
Yes.
But I think two things could be true at the same time, but you're also asking the fiscal body to like that's what we got sworn in and took the oath to do. Like, that's literally a part of our job.
Yes.
So if we can't afford it, and we don't have all the numbers into play, like, then what are we saying? So, like, I just want to kind of challenge and kind of push back just a little bit, because we do want that conversation, because if we don't have that conversation, then we're back at square one.
Oh, yes.
So we want to make sure that we know, like, that's what we're asking of.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of push back on that respect.
Yes. I think we're on the same page. We just don't want a dollar figure without the conversation, is what I was saying. Because there's always values and value judgments that are behind the dollars. And I think we want to be absolutely clear that we're on the same page, instead of just getting a figure. For example, if you say we have $100 million to spend, I think we would want guidance from you on how to spend that $100 million. And without that guidance, we just can't move forward.
Yeah, but I think that also can come through a way of resolution too.
Absolutely.
Is that we set the bar there. So
yes.
Okay, I see Commissioner Thomas has her hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate having this discussion. I just want to say that your consultant believed that you were, without Senate Bill 1, take that off the table for a moment. I know it's a reality. I'm not ignoring it. According to Mr. Garitas, things were aligned to proceed with the project as it was before the legislature met in 2025 and changed the parameters. And so I'm not sure, I don't know what the answer is there, but certainly, yes, the budget is key. But what we heard was for reasons to say no to the project was more than money. And that's why we're asking these questions. Because you are in charge of the money, clearly. That is your job. That is a difficult, darn difficult task, especially in present situation. But y'all were offering opinions on other parts of the project, and that's why we're asking these questions. And yes, so this is part of that conversation that needs to happen. And yes, money matters. Yes, you're going to have to make that decision. But, you know, if the parameters you set will help us look at what budget we're going to need as well, right? So we can have that conversation. But, you know, if it's not co-located, if it's not one floor, if it's not whatever, that's going to change the budget too. So there's budgetary concerns, obviously, from the council side, but then there's what can you build for that much money? And I mean, if you want to look at what happens when we insist on having the Justice building downtown and we insist on having multiple floors, which at the time was normal. It wasn't that unheard of, but they don't do that anymore for a reason. You can look at our current Justice building and it's all of its pimples and warts. It was good while it lasted, but it is not a building that can be remodeled or expanded. And those two things are just literally killing us. So thank you again. We look forward to the future conversations.
All right. So, yes, Commissioner Madeira.
Can I add one more thing? There's two matters that I referenced before in the commissioners' meeting that I think also bear upon matters. There are two statewide measures that I think the public does not know about and council members might not know about that do bear upon the size of the jail in general. There's a proposed criminal rule that is open for comment right now. It closes, actually it just closed, where the court proposed cutting the continuance period from 90 to 70 days and allowing judges to keep level 1 through 3 felonies and murder defendants jailed during continuances. So this basically means for serious charges, there will be more jail to bed days, even with a shorter continuance clock. In addition, there is a constitutional amendment. So in 2023, the General Assembly passed a constitutional amendment to let judges deny bail to people deemed a substantial risk to the public, but they don't define what that is, which can create major due process issues. So to take effect, it must pass the General Assembly again this year in 25-26 with the same language. And then we'll win voter approval probably on the November 2026 ballot. It is expected to win voter approval. It is not yet certified for the ballot, but if this passes, we will also have more pretrial detention, so we will have a higher average daily population. So these are two things I also am very afraid of when I think of this jail building, and makes it hard for me to sleep at night. Again, because due process concerns, etc. So I just wanted to share that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So is there anything else that we need to discuss? I think we talked about this at great length now. I'm glad, again, that we were able to talk about next steps, because I know it was mentioned in commissioners' meeting that they hadn't heard from us, and we were, trying to sleep after our marathon meeting. But after that being said, I did reach out, and I'm glad y'all took us up on that offer. So now we understand the assignment, and so I think this is something that is a work in progress and we'll continue to work on. And I just hope that our council, my council colleagues, all of us will consider what we need to do in next steps. Maybe that means we have a separate special meeting where we actually just focus primarily on this. I don't think that we could possibly have a conversation of a meeting, like during a regular session of our meeting, to have this. I think this is definitely something that is special, and obviously of the time is of the essence. So, to talk about things such as resolutions, such as setting a budget and saying what that looks like and what we can and cannot afford, because that's, what the fiscal body does. So if there are no other further questions or comments from council and commissioners, I will ponder on this, but not for too long, because I know we all got some things to think about. So, all right, I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Thomas. All right, next up, as we proceed and wind down our agenda here, we got item D.
Council, I move to approve Resolution 2025-47, approving the interlocal cooperation between the City of Bloomington and Monroe County regarding the 2024 Edward Bryan Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
All right, Ms. Turner-King, what would you like to add?
So I'm displaying the resolution. This is a resolution that approves an interlocal agreement for the JAG grant. This is a grant that we receive annually. Well, the city receives it, and it is shared between the city and the county. The interlocal provides that the county receives 7% of the JAG funds made available through the Department of Justice, and that is based on violent crime statistics. And so this would mean that the county would be receiving in total $3,093 of the available funding, and that the funds would be committed to the purchase of taser cartridges.
Okay. Council, what questions or comments might you have related to this item? Councilor Wiltz?
What's the history of this? Is this like every year we've done this in perpetuity forever?
I can say we've done it every year that I've been here. Beyond that, I'm not sure, but I don't think that's a new thing.
And so the city gets the 93% and we get the 7%, or are there other jurisdictions?
This is just city and county.
Do we always use it for similar items?
So the grant itself, we have not always used it for this items. It's always been a law enforcement purchase. Last year, I think we bought stop strips. It's always something that we work with the sheriff's office to identify why it's what it's going to be spent on. And I'm trying to find. Let me find it. There it is. The federal code outlines what this could be used on, and I'm trying to find it on the fly here, but it's primarily for law enforcement purposes.
Sure. So, and do we always indicate in the agreement what the purchase is?
The agreement does outline the purchase, but there is the option, and we have in the past used it so that if the sheriff's office identifies a different need, there's a process to amend the request for what it's to be purchased. But this is a reimbursable grant, so any amendment there to the grant must be amended prior to the purchase or expenditure of the funds.
I forgot my last.
So since I'm new, I'll ask who Edward Byrne was. Who was he? Do we know?
I know. He was a 22-year-old New York City Police Department patrolman who was murdered in the line of duty in 1988 while sitting in his car. He was shot 5 times in the head and died at the age of 22.
Thank you.
And that is in part why it's based on violent crime statistics, because Officer Byrne's death was committed by a violent drug gang in New York City.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, if there is public comment on this item, you can come forward to the lectern here in the Nat Hill room, or you can raise your hand via Teams. And
prior to the vote, I do want to procedurally add what happens with the interlocal next. So this is on the commissioner's agenda for approval on the 13th because both bodies approve an interlocal. Typically, City Council would also approve the interlocal, but I've been advised by City Legal that they're going to be sending the interlocal to the Attorney General for approval, which is an option that the statute allows for.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't have reasoning behind that statement. I just know that's procedurally what is going to happen. I don't know why the city decided that course of action.
Okay, I'm gonna mind the business that pays me, which is council. So I'll let it go. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that tidbit of information, and now we will go to a roll call vote. please.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Great, thank you for that. We were efficient in our meeting, and we have now come to the time that we have missed because of marathon meetings where we welcome all colored discussions, as Councilor Fido gives us. So we are now at the council liaison and comment part. And I would again look to my right, but Councilor Hawk isn't here, so I'm gonna look to my screen to see if she has anything to add. And you're muted.
Yes, I very much want us to have a breakdown. I don't know who's going to do it, whether it will, whatever, but we need to find out exactly how much we think the 1.2 is going to be, break it all down, put dollar figures with it, and recognize then where we are, because we're already spending down a part of that, because we spend it down out of the economic development and out of the jail tax. And I heard Councilmember Deckard question, will we put that tax in place and we aren't doing anything with it? Well, remember that we are doing something with it. We have personnel in there. We have the medical contract in there, because it is not just to build a jail, but it's also for operations. And so we moved some of the jail operation costs into there. So it is being used. It just isn't being used to build another jail. But if we build another jail and we need more staff, we're going to have to cover it out of this jail tax. This is not just like money that's going to be sitting around we don't know what to do with. But thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councilor Hawk. All right, I'm gonna look down to Councilor Fido, because she already has her pad and pen ready. So, but I'm astonished because I don't see any markups on it.
I know, can you believe it?
I know.
I've just been so wrapped up in so many different meetings and projects and I think we've been discussing many of them at the last several meetings now. And so I don't know that I have much else to add at this point. So I think a lot of our work has been done here that I've been involved in. So.
That's enough. All right.
Yeah, I just have one comment, or at least one topic. Regarding our schedule, we looked at kind of the meeting schedule for next year and some options there, and some of the options I think rightfully consider maybe providing for what Councilor Crossley was referring to as work-life balance, giving us a little bit of a break, maybe knowing that sometimes of year we have to dig in and be the best friends that we all are for days and days in a row. Having been on council now for a few years, it's hard to get the business done in the amount of time we have. And so my knee-jerk reaction is to be very hesitant to cut out meetings, although I cannot take that. I do think that work-life balance is important, and I think one thing that we should consider as we plan for next year and even into the end of this year is committee work, whether it's official, unofficial, that kind of thing, but delegating to each other. I think I've said this before, but I personally think that having no PAC meetings at all this year was a bit of a mistake, just because there's plenty of work around personnel issues that we could be doing. And it's not that we can't do it without PAC, but we're not likely to. So I've been accused of being really into meetings. I do like a good meeting, but I just want to throw it out there that it might be worthwhile to really consider targeted approaches to getting some of these things done. I worry when we talk about the next steps with the jail that it might languish if we're not really, and I'm not questioning your leadership on it at all, Councilor Crossley. I appreciate everything you're doing to get us moving forward. But you know, these are the things that are in my head right now, is like, you know, we've got these things that we need to work on, things we need to move forward on, and maybe it's, you know, carve out little pieces for subsets and bring it back to the whole at these bigger meetings. That's what's in my head.
So to clarify, would you think, like, are you thinking maybe more council committees to break up some of the work, to maybe kind of break up the time spent in here and doing that and then bringing it back? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think our time here could be better spent if we were forced to have some of us have some homework and bring it back. That's all.
Okay.
I don't do homework that's not assigned to me typically, so I'm just saying, if you want me to work on things,
well,
tell me what it is and give me a due date. I can do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Councilor Wiltz. Councilor Decker.
Thank you very much, President Crossley. I will say that for the entire community, and this is a large statement, I think, and this, you could extend this beyond local government into state and federal too, if anyone were listening. I think life will be much easier if politicians do what politicians used to do best, and that was talk amongst each other. Having just the thing or the idea or what have you just doesn't get it done. And so it's for hard things ahead, people are gonna have to talk whether or not they like it or not. So one thing I wanted to say in my report, in addition to the wonderful tribute to Charlotte that went earlier in the meeting, I also want to mention another community lion and legend that was celebrated on Saturday was Pat Williams, longtime Bloomington City Clerk and Democratic Party Chair for years. Did those things for years in a way that makes you sometimes question what was her secret to getting those done. And these legends, it seems that we're losing a lot of them, and I hope not, they're lessons. And there was a beautiful tributes to both in the last week. It's a lot for the community, so we certainly think about that. I do want to say I woke up this morning to more snow. I drove home in a little bit of snow coming from Anderson yesterday, and when I see that snow a little bit early, November 10th, November 9th and 10th, I always think of our highway workers and just gratitude to them and the emergency responders that have to work without ceasing around those situations. Thanks to them, and of course Lisa Ridge and the whole team that makes that happen. I do want to say on the eve of Veterans Day, thanks to all of our the Monroe County veterans, which number in tremendous amounts. I do want to say for Veterans Day itself, it's important for veterans in the community. If you believe that you're in need of assistance in any way, we have a dynamic team just over in the Curry Building at 214 West 7th Street. We've got Steve Miller over there, our Veteran Service Officer. We have his loyal Assistant Veteran Service Officer, Andrew Blake. Those two go above and beyond, as they did for this country. They go above and beyond in assisting veterans. And I routinely receive updates from them as liaison about what they can tell me about who they're helping and what they're doing. They are literally out where veterans are, whether that be a veteran sitting in their office enjoying the fine coffee that they share, or it's a veteran that is literally sitting out in the street in weather like this. They work with everybody. So if they could be of assistance to you or a veteran in your family, just ask. Just ask. Sometimes the VA is cumbersome. Navigating that can be hard. Reach out to them. Search for Monroe County Veterans Affairs Office. Go down and see them. Call 812-349-2537. We are grateful to all those veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and so tomorrow we are off, and county offices are closed because tomorrow is Veterans Day. So I just want to thank all the those that have served and continue to serve our country. I think of the veterans in my life who are no longer here, especially my dad, who is a Vietnam vet, who was a Marine, and almost lost his life fighting for this country. So I just really take my hat off and much gratitude and appreciation because of you, we are. So I want to say that. And I'm looking forward to attending some of the Veterans Day events that are happening throughout Bloomington and Monroe County that we usually have to pay tribute to those that continue to serve. The other thing I wanted to say, in addition to that, is I think sometimes it's also important for folks to see people being out and about in the community. And I just want to take a moment and congratulate the NAACP on their Freedom Fund banquet that was about a week ago. And so I saw some council members there, Councilor Deckard and Councilor Feidel, that were there in attendance. I got a chance to MC that or co-MC that with a guy that's near and dear to me. But there was this the topic was the fierce urgency of now. And I think of the keynote speaker, Dr. Charlie Nelms, who made a quote or said a quote that has stuck with me since he said it. And he said, "A vision without a plan is an illusion." And I keep repeating that because I keep thinking about all the things that we are doing right now as elected officials and all the hard work. And I think of the giants that we have lost over the past several years. I think of, Judge Talaferro. I think of, Pat Williams. I think of our beloved council member Cheryl Munson, and now I think about Charlotte Zitlow, and all of those are great, phenomenal women who did hard stuff and got jobs done and, reached across the aisle and talked with people. I talked to Councilor Hawk about Charlotte and her, her memories of her, and that was a really interesting conversation that we had there about that, and I didn't know about that. So I appreciated Councilor Hawk sharing that with me. So as we continue to lose our giants and pillars in our community, I think it's incumbent upon us as electeds now to not necessarily fill the shoes of those people, because we will never fill them, and we will never fill that. But now the torch has been passed on to us. And so now we need to do what is right, because I keep thinking, and I keep saying this a lot, but it's something I've thought about. Some of my final conversations I had with Charlotte was that you can, in her small voice that she had, she said, "You can do hard things. It might not be easy, but you can do them." And I think about all the conversations that we've had, the continued conversations, those that are sometimes that give us heartburn and pain, but it's what we get paid the big bucks to do and what we got sworn into office to do. And I say big bucks sarcastically. So with that being said, I appreciate all of our colleagues that joined us virtually and in person. And with that being said, happy Veterans Day. Thank a veteran tomorrow, but just every day. And we are adjourned. Thank you.